call this meeting together, or Mr. Doheny, if we can get started.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first presentation will be kicked off by Brent McKenzie. He'll introduce the members of our federal lobbyist team. So go ahead, Brent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Today we are joined by our federal government relations team from Becker and Polikoff. We are joined by Anthony Bedell, Senior Corporate and Government Relations Director, Alfonso Lopez, Senior Corporate and Government Relations Consultant, and Perry Adair, Government Relations Consultant. They will provide a short update on our federal government relations program, provide an overview of federal funds received over the last year, and an outlook for fiscal year 27.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alfonso Lopez. Just wanted to do a quick background about each of us at the firm, and then also talk about some details and be open to any questions you might have. So just by way of background, we are a national law and lobbying firm, been around for 50 years, 15 years in DC. We're recently named one of the top 100 lobbying firms in the country, number 77 to be exact. Very diverse, bipartisan firm with folks who were chiefs of staff and then senior political and policy people in the Trump White House, the Obama White House, and both sides of the aisle in Congress. The team is made up of myself and Anthony and Perry, but also our true grants expert, Amanda Wood, Omar Franco, who is as knowledgeable of his appropriations work as anyone in the country, and then Clarence Williams, who is a policy person extraordinaire, in the weeds, can make things happen, and a former chief of staff in the House of Representatives. We've had an incredibly successful 2025, as you know, working closely with Brent McKenzie, who is amazing, and Andrew Damon, who is equally amazing, and your entire Virginia Beach staff, everyone who works for public works, transportation. You have to be incredibly proud of the work they do on behalf of the city and how responsive they are to every opportunity we present to the city. And so from the mayor on down, thank you very, very much. In total federal grant funding just last year, $15.34 million. In final FY26 earmarks, $12 million. Considering what was going on with the appropriations process last year, we thought that was incredibly good. This year, already, as a result of the House and Senate, we have $35.6 million already set aside in the Senate, and then $4.05 million in the House. Those bills will be reconciled, but it's looking like the Senate version will carry the day for the majority of our projects, and we are in an incredibly good position relative to other communities and municipalities in the region. Virginia Beach is doing incredibly well, and you are near the top for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia as well. With the breakdown of earmarks, I want to hand it over to our appropriations guru, Mr. Perry Adair.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having us. I'm Perry Adair at Becker and Polikoff. Just going to give you a quick overview of the awards to date, both finalized and pending. So FY26, that got cleared up if you remember that long shutdown, the minibus that ended it. Those included the final slate of FY26 earmarks. The largest $10 million for the I-264 Independence Boulevard interchange improvements to relieve congestion, and the $1 million award for Bow Creek Stormwater Park to relieve flooding, and $1 million for Pungo Ferry Road. Those are finalized, and we're working with Brent and Andrew and our federal counterparts to draw those funds down if they're not already. So stay tuned for that. Moving forward on the preliminary side, Alfonso touched on this as well. In the Senate, they're a little bit further behind than the House, which is pretty standard. We have $35.6 million pending, $10 million each for Eastern Shore drainage improvements. That's a flooding and stormwater project. The Stormwater Operations Center and kind of a recurring project that we've had, Virginia Beach Trail phases 2 and 3. and then $5 million for Nimmo Parkway, and then $600,000 for vehicle mitigation barriers through the police department. That's the Senate side, and that's at the member level stage. So Senator Warren and Kane have put in for those projects. They support them. On the House side, they're a little bit further ahead, where Congresswoman Kiggins has put in for a number of projects, $4.05 million, and the committee has further called that number, not just for her projects, but house-wide. And that slate includes $2 million for the Stormwater Operations Center, a little over $1 million for the Eastern Shore Drainage Project, the trail projects, and Nimmo Parkway. So similar slate, but a different funding level. And to kind of give you a context of where we are procedurally in that process, we're already in the May-June area. This cycle roughly mirrors what Congress typically does in a typical fiscal year, although it never really operates on time. But for our purposes, we're in obviously the May-June area, so we're well on pace in the House. We have submitted those projects on the city's behalf. The members have selected them, and the committees are now reviewing those project slates. Typically, so the end of the fiscal year, as always, is September 30th, and you got to have some funding bill to avoid a shutdown, as you all remember last year, longest shutdown in government history. But for our purposes, we typically get a bill out with our member projects by the end of the year, winter, and then with funds being drawn down soon thereafter. So we're in a good place. The committee is now reviewing those projects. We're feeling confident, and as Alfonso alluded to, when they reconcile the two bills, will likely be somewhere in between that $35 million in the Senate and the $4 million in the House. So with that, I want to go over the grants, Alfonso, for the year.
Part and parcel of what we do with the appropriations earmarks is also working very closely with your agencies, your departments on specific federal grant awards. And so what that means is we will work with the delegation to submit letters of support. We'll also work with folks who we know in the administration and senior positions to get your projects a special look, to try to get them the kind of attention they need to get. And so as a result of that, you've seen around 15.34 million just in last year earmarks alone. And these are just some of the examples from everything from Homeland Security to education to housing, and to help with your relations with the local Defense Department footprint. Next.
First off, I want to apologize to the mayor and the city council. In my haste of taking my daughter to school this morning and driving home from Leesburg down here, I forgot my tie, so please don't.
Oh, say it so.
Please don't hold it against me.
Well, next time we'll schedule adornment.
I know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it clear I do sometimes dress professionally. So anyway, what we're doing, obviously, 2027 is a interesting year, as you've probably noticed in Washington, D.C., but there will be a few things moving that will potentially have benefits to the city. Right now, they're working on surface transportation reauthorization. That passed the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee. That will go to the House floor and subsequently to the Senate. That is a must-do bill because the IIJA expires at the end of this year, so they need to extend it. This one has another 5-year reauthorization. It's about $580 billion of infrastructure funding that would be available, obviously, across the country, but offers the opportunities for the city. The WRDA implementation and CSRM, and Alfonso can speak to some of this, that is moving forward. They were going to mark that up in the House in 2 weeks, and that will move forward. That is another must-do bill on both sides, and we expect that to be done by the end of the year. And also the NDAA, which is important, obviously, to the military here in the city and in Hampton Roads, that will be done as well. The wide-ranging opportunities that we work with the Public Works team and Brett and Andrew, obviously, we're always pursuing flooding and storm resiliency, including brick funding, police and fire department, cops, AFG, and then any last opportunities. There were still, I think, $2.5 billion of the IIJ left for this year that they'll be issuing NOFOs for. So any opportunities for the beach to pursue those, we will obviously do that and work with the delegation. I think we have a great bipartisan delegation, obviously, with the senators and Representative Kiggins, who work together and make calls, write letters, and they're always very supportive of the city's priorities. So that's kind of what we're doing, looking ahead. Is it this one? And then some of these executive orders that have paused the disbursement of infrastructure and energy projects have been blocked by courts. So that is still ongoing in not only litigation, but some of them are moving forward despite what's been going on with the executive orders. And then OMB just issued a rule that I'll go over with your government relations team. That is a blanket rule that could fundamentally change how grants are given out. So we'll get you more details on that because it was really just released on Friday, and there's a lot of strings attached that concerned me when I read it. And so we want to make sure that the city's part of the comment period that goes through, I think, the middle of July. And so we'll get more details on that. And then, like I said, the surface transportation reauthorization bill expires at the end of the year, so we expect action on that. And then I believe we'll probably see appropriations wrapped up by December. Yeah.
So with that, that's the end of our formal presentation. But by way of background, just so you know that the immediate team that's working with you, Anthony Bedell was in the Trump White House in Trump 1, where he worked, and he's also worked in the Bush White House on labor issues, and he was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation. And so, you know, I'm incredibly proud of the fact that our team knows and is able to deliver on transportation projects and work that process in a way that other folks can't. I worked in the Obama White House and the Clinton White House, and also was the head of congressional and federal affairs for all of the Commonwealth of Virginia under then Governor Tim Kaine, now Senator Tim Kaine. And so we were able to bring our relationships on both sides of the aisle with the administration, with the Republican members of the Congress, with the senators and all the Democratic members of Congress to bear on accomplishing what the city needs and getting things done for the city. Also, our senior associate, Perry Adair, Georgetown law grad, basically smarter than both of us combined, but also delivering for the city on a daily basis. And so what we're able to do is, because of our relationships with the city, because of the length of time we've represented the city, I think we've been incredibly effective in accomplishing what the city needs. With that, we're open to taking any questions. And I would actually, one thing, Mr. Mayor, before I begin, I think that what usually happens is that the eventual earmark number is closer to the Senate number based on traditions of how things have worked. And so I think you'll be closer to that 35 million than the 4 million.
Hey, before I get to Rosemary, you know, one very pressing project, Nimmo Parkway. This is something we got to get open. We're talking about public safety. We're talking about lives. And, you know, the fact is that the bureaucratic logjam is unacceptable. And I know there's competing forces and, you know, things that, you know, for and against, but I tell you what, you guys are amazing. And if anybody can do it, you can. Please get to Ken.
Just be aware, sir, I was actually talking to the legislative director for Senator Kaine yesterday about several projects, including Nimmo Parkway. And they are very aware of the environmental assessments, the environmental impact statements, and everything else that's been going on with that process. And so I understand, and we're on it.
You know, can you really stress that the high priority that we have this, and we needed it done yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Rosemary and Josh.
Thank you for bringing that up, Bobby. I think there's something called speed, a new process called speed especially. The longer this takes also, the more money it's going to cost us. It's not just money, but it's also like lives, and it's the military ready. Bamnick shouldn't have to worry about us going through their base to get people in and out of Sandbridge. But that being said, we're so lucky to have y'all. And your experience is really wonderful because it is all about relationships, and we know how important that is. And if there's any time you ever need one of us to come up to Washington to help you with anything, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We actually just hosted Brent up in DC to talk to all the senior staff about all of your projects. But there is great value in bringing up elected leaders and the mayor and everyone else to when you're already planning to be there, just to have those conversations with the delegation.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for your report. I wanted to chime in just to say how much I appreciate your approach, because, you know, we're local government, we're closest to the folks who need the services, and, you know, it's a big, complicated world up on top of us. And what I often tell people is there are no red or blue roads. There are no Republican or Democrat pipes in the ground, and there are no left or right environmental or economic development initiatives. I mean, we are all in this together, and like the Vice Mayor said, it is all about relationships and how you can kind of leverage resources for us, and we really appreciate your work and the approach you're taking.
Thank you, sir. And one thing to just say to that, Mr. Mayor, is the work that you have done over the last several decades of building those relationships in previous mayors, previous councils, previous staff have been very, very valuable. And also, it's not lost on anyone in the General Assembly, or sorry, in the congressional delegation, that Virginia Beach is one of the biggest players, most important players in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And as Virginia Beach goes, so does the Commonwealth.
Okay, Amelia, then Worth.
Thank you again for presenting this. Some of you I know because I will go up with either the Hampton Roads Transit or as president for the Virginia Tourism Transit Association. I go up there. I'm very pleased about the 10 million for the I-264 for that area. I wrote down for the BB Trail, because both of them go right through my district, and people are always asking, when is that going to happen? What? But you know, like the elephant, one bit at a time, and you are doing it. And when we go up there, you treat us well. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for the presentation and for your work. Congratulations. Just a quick question about some of the grants, because you mentioned here BB Trail phases 2 and 3 and the stormwater. When we agree to a grant and commit to, say, $10 million with a federal match of 20, that doesn't get compromised in the budget process because it's not final here. In other words, if we agree to 10 and the federal government does 20, but then it gets squeezed down to 15, do we still have to put in our 10, if you understand the question?
Yeah, I do. It really depends on the project. It depends on the program. And so you'll have different cost share agreements that have to go into place, depending on if it's a environment interior bill or the THUD bill or the COPS bill with regard to funding mechanisms. And so it depends on the grant and the earmark and the program.
Okay, anybody else at this point? But thank you all for doing such a magnificent job. You know, during tough times, it takes really people with vision and just the can-do spirit to do things. And I just want to thank you all, Brett, you, Andrew, the entire team that it takes to make this work. Let's keep it going.
I think you deserve a clap.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You know, also, Mr. Mayor, in all of these difficult times of the partisanship and all, it's nice to know things are getting done.
Oh, yeah.
There are things that are getting done, because if you just listen to news networks, you don't think anything's happening.
Or the internet.
Hi, Amanda.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff is going to bring the recommendations from the e-bike task force and consolidate those in a brief presentation and walk council through some of the recommendations and seek your guidance as it relates to any changes that you'd like us to make in policy or any next steps you want us to take as it relates to e-bikes in the city of Virginia Beach.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson, members of City Council, Manager Duhaney, and City Attorney Stiles. As the manager mentioned, I'm here to provide another overview for you for the work that the e-bike task force did. I will summarize their recommendations and then we'll seek City Council direction on next steps. So as a reminder, this task force was formed to review current state and local laws, to study public safety and health risks associated with the use of e-bikes, evaluate best practices that are found in other communities, and then recommend strategies in a variety of categories that we'll walk through. So again, I'd like to thank some of the task force members that are here in the audience today for their work. There was very robust discussion throughout the meetings that occurred. And then this is the list of the extensive number of city staff that participated in an effort to support the task force and answer any questions that they had during their discussion. So Fountain Works participated as the neutral facilitator to convene the meetings. The task force did meet on 4 occasions beginning in November of 2025 and finished their work in March of 2026. You did receive an initial presentation from the chair and vice chair as well as Fountain Works back in April, but it was a lot of information discussed in one setting, and so we're here to just walk you through those recommendations yet again, answer any questions you may have, and seek your direction. I won't go through this slide in its entirety, but the vision of the task force was to really discuss the various uses of e-bikes, safety concerns, and the environment in which they should be operated. There was lots of discussion regarding not only location of use of e-bikes, but also signage and education. So again, as a reminder, there are 3 classes of e-bikes. Class 1 has a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. It's really thought of more as like a pedal assist bike and no assistance beyond that max speed. Class 2 is throttle assisted, again, max speed of 20 miles per hour. And then class 3 can go as high as 28 miles per hour. So there is another discussion regarding e-motos, and so sometimes it is difficult from the eye as you're driving to differentiate what may be an e-bike and then what may be an e-moto, and so these are just a visual representation of what would be considered an e-moto. So the task force, again, had very robust discussions. The majority of their recommendations were unanimously adopted. The only place where there was dissent was in the area related to the boardwalk bike path use and then in the area related to signage and infrastructure. So 8 members were in support of those 2 recommendations that we'll walk through, with 1 in dissent, but otherwise the remainder of the recommendations were unanimous. So you see 2 categories here. As you all are well aware, we are a Dillon Rule state, so we can only expressly implement what the state we can only implement what the state expressly authorizes us to. And so a number of the recommendations that we'll walk through will require state assistance and action by the Commonwealth. When we talk specifically about the city of Virginia Beach, you can see the number 1 recommendation from the task force was to advocate for state regulation, have a targeted communication strategy as a city, and educate parents and users of e-bikes about safety concerns. They did also suggest additional signage about e-bikes be placed throughout the city, if empowered to regulate the speed of those e-bikes, and then restrict operations in the higher density areas where there may be safety concerns, and then continue to monitor best practices across the country. So we'll walk through these a little more specifically. We are pleased to share that the House Bill 1120 was signed by the governor and that there is a working group that is being created, and Brent McKenzie will serve as the city's representative. Again, I spoke to this earlier, but a lot of what was discussed will require action by the Commonwealth. There was a bill that was filed, House Bill 269. It was deferred until 2027, but a number of items that were contained in that bill were recommendations from the task force, and so the task force would suggest supporting and being highly engaged in that General Assembly action as it moves forward. So education and communication. The task force supported targeted communication and education to both residents and visitors. As you all know, we welcome over 14 million guests a year, and so it's important that we inform users of e-bikes that may be visiting our community of how they are to be used and where they are to be used in the city of Virginia Beach. They wanted us to ensure that we were targeting the demographic to speak to them, so have content that would be for parents, visitors, and also youth, as well as involving the e-bike vendors, so those that may sell an e-bike. They also were very supportive of us coordinating with Virginia Beach Public Schools to ensure that students received safety education regarding the use of e-bikes. There was lots of discussion related to signage, having more signage and where that signage should be placed. The focus was on high-density areas as well as school zones, and they wanted the signage to indicate where they were permitted, safe operating expectations, as well as general guidance for the riders, and then create infrastructure that encouraged both safe and responsible operation of e-bikes. Speed management. So again, this would require some changes to current state code, but the task force recommended that if empowered, the city should restrict the speed of the e-bikes. Location restrictions, and I'll have a follow-up slide regarding location restrictions at the end of the presentation, but they did indicate that high-density areas are priority for safety when utilizing e-bikes. They did recommend to maintain the current e-bike ban on sidewalks in both the town center area and the resort area. The task force recommended maintaining prohibition of e-bikes on the resort area boardwalk. They recommended prohibiting e-motos on shared youth and bike paths, and they recommended that we seek consistency in regulations between trails and shared youth paths, not only in the city of Virginia Beach, but across the entire Hampton Roads region. They also, as a part of their discussion, indicated that future location restrictions may be warranted based on how the city evolves and additional trails and paths that are constructed. So the task force did, and again, I'll have a follow-up slide at the end of the presentation regarding this recommendation, but the task force did recommend that City Code Section 7-59.3 be amended that would allow e-bikes on the resort area bike path. They did also follow that up with a caveat that if allowed, a suggested speed limit should be posted. We've touched on this earlier, but they suggested that we continue to monitor best practices across resort communities and the country. Again, as technology evolves, it'll be important that we stay in tune to what other localities are doing to regulate these devices and collaborate with the Active Transportation Committee and then potentially reconvene the e-bike safety task force once a year. So again, as I mentioned, action by the General Assembly will be required. And so here's more specifically what was suggested. I mentioned House Bill 269. They would like to require audible warning devices on the e-bikes, create an e-bike code for our public safety partners, and then require that all e-bike riders wear helmets. It was also discussed the implementation of a registration program, so require e-bike registration to assist in enforcement. This would create some sort of like visible indication of what type of e-bike the individual is riding, and then to issue license plates or some other similar identifying marker. Again, we've touched on enforcement and training. It is really critical that we provide individuals tools to be safe when utilizing these devices, and that's a collaborative effort between our city communications department and our public safety partners as well as the schools. And so the recommendation to council is that increased e-bike usage in Virginia Beach has created the need for clearer guidelines and safeguards to address safety concerns. And the e-bike task force recognized the need to proactively address safety challenges while also integrating the use of these devices into the city. You've seen this slide before, but this just breaks out the recommendations that we just walked through based on action in the city of Virginia Beach and then requests of support from the Commonwealth. And here's some key decision point slides. So I think, again, the task force was united on the policy and education components. Where there was some division was regarding locations of utilization of the e-bikes. And so here's the question before us. Does City Council support the policy and education recommendations of the task force? But should we maintain the status quo and not allow e-bikes on the resort bike path, or amend the city code as was recommended by the task force to allow the use of e-bikes on the resort bike path? Should the city maintain the current e-bike ban on sidewalks in town center and the resort area? Should the city maintain the prohibition of e-bikes on the resort area boardwalk? And then should the city prohibit e-motos on shared youth paths or bike paths as allowed? So these are the key decision points. I'm happy to answer any questions. We seek your direction on guidance and next steps.
Okay, we're gonna go Rosemary and Stacy.
Well,
And Josh.
there's a lot of
And
good
Todd.
people that worked on this, and I know there was a lot of hard work on a very difficult topic. And it's really a big buzz in the community because people really care about this, because there's a lot of safety issues that are involved, and we all care about safety issues. And I think there's a lot of great recommendations. I do agree with just about everything on there except for not allowing the bikes on the bike path. I live there, I see it, I experience it every day. If you say you allow it on the bike path, they're going to still be on the boardwalk. There's a lot of pedestrians. And there's also pedestrians when they come out of their hotels and all that. They don't know to look both ways to see. They want to look at the ocean. They're like, oh, there's the ocean, and they don't look. There's a lot of some severe safety issues involved with that. And we did just vote a few months ago to allow the bikes on Atlantic Avenue.
Yes, ma'am.
So they do, and we gave them permission for that. So I cannot support having the e-bikes on the boardwalk or the bike path. I would also like to emphasize that I'm very, very happy that Brent is going to be working with the state. And I think that we should be going further than what they're recommending. Some states have done some things like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, where e-bike owners have to be licensed like you do with a car. We have to have a license, not a license plate, but a license, and have some age restrictions and perhaps insurance. These things are motorized vehicles. And I would like if Brent could represent that position when he is on that task force, and perhaps we can put that in our legislative package as well. But I want to thank everybody for what they've done. I know it's been a long time coming.
Okay, thank you. Stacy?
Thank you, ma'am. I was one of the liaisons to the task force on e-bikes, along with Councilman Hutchinson. And a friend of mine from Carlsbad, California, sent me a news clip that they just recently passed ordinances on e-bikes out in Carlsbad. And one of the things that they did was they made an age restriction. Theirs is 12 years old. I don't recall, and I was at the vast majority of all the meetings that we had as a task force. And I'll ask Councilman Hutchinson if you recall us even talking about that. But that just struck me as just an incredible tool, because when you talk to people about their objections to e-bikes, it's not the responsible adults that are riding their e-bikes around town. It's the young kids that are out there that have no idea what traffic laws are, no training, and just too immature to be riding on these things. So I think that I strongly propose that we ask the General Assembly to look at or implement age restrictions on these e-bikes. Secondly, I know the task force had recommended taking away or doing away with the restriction of e-bikes on the boardwalk. And I would say that without some of the other measures being implemented as far such as speed restrictions and the signage that are being proposed to be put up, without those things already being in place, I think it might be a little premature for us to lift or to even consider lifting the restriction on e-bikes on the boardwalk until we have all the safety measures that would make this feasible in place. So I would ask that maybe we just defer considering the implementation or changing the ordinance about e-bikes on the boardwalk until we have all the other safety measures in place that would even make this feasible. And I'm not saying that at the end of the day that we should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that at this point in time, it might be irresponsible for us to go forward with that until we had the other guardrails in place.
Okay, thank you. Josh, then Hutch.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rita, for the update, and also thank you to the members of the task force and the folks who are here who have put work in this. I've learned a lot about this subject, as we all have, I know, and there are tremendous benefits, for folks in terms of mobility, that last mile. We're a city that should be open to these transportation alternatives. However, I couldn't agree more with the vice mayor on the bike path at the resort, because I've seen it firsthand. I've been startled by them. I've witnessed near misses. I think we just have to appreciate whether they're good or bad. They create kind of a danger, and we're trying to create a safe place for families. And these people may not expect it. And to the vice mayor's point, I mean, you see that beach and you're walking and you don't know to look both ways, because, I mean, even if you see a bike, you don't know if they're going, you look at a bike and they could be going slow, but you don't know the thing's going like 30 miles an hour. So you can't even kind of gauge whether or not it's safe to cross. I do like some of these things, like audio warnings and things to make sure that people know that it's not just a traditional bike coming at you. I support no e-bikes in town center, and I think they should be on the streets. But the resort is a different kind of place, and what I would suggest, if there is resistance around the table, and I understand it, for an outright ban on the bike path, what I might suggest is, while we work on some of these other state code issues, maybe we say, just like dogs, or make it seasonal, because I think, at least in my mind, what we're trying to protect is the tourist coming here who doesn't know any better. So maybe 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the high season, you can't have e-bikes on the boardwalk. Early in the morning, maybe those people can go and they can get exercise. Maybe they go to the bar or restaurant at night, and they're free to go and do that and go up and down. And I know from an enforcement perspective that's impossible, but so is everything else we're talking about. So if we're gonna spend time, effort, and resources and put signs and rules in place, we might as well do it in a way that protects against the danger that we perceive and that we know is real, while also allowing for these things to serve the purposes that they need to serve for people who need them.
Okay, we go Hutch and Cash.
Okay, I'm going to take a slightly different tack. For starters, and I can tell you that this could be, I don't know, an older white guy, a way of thinking is that, and I speak for Stacy as well from your past profession as being the fire chief, and how we rolled with stuff is when the city manager would give you programs or things to run. It wasn't him running it, it was us running it. Your job at, priority, I don't think anybody really told you a whole lot of how to do your position there at the last few years, correct?
Correct.
So when you put the two of us on a task force, and then, and I'm not putting words in your mouth that you were definitely against to begin with. You were won over by the time this was over, right? So fair statement. And then just a few of the names that are on there, as Mr. Caton is sitting back there. There are multiple names. I'm not going to go through them. Active Transportation, all these people that really have a vested interest. Because what I'm going to say here for a second, a little bit of a sidebar is that I know a few of you have taken some heat over this as far as the people that are calling you. You banned e-bikes on the boardwalk, and we're going to get blown up from people that are against what you're doing. Because when you talk about close calls and everything else, do you know it's an e-bike or a regular bike? When we talked about the speed limits that the deputy city manager talked about, 20 miles an hour is doable for most every bike. Not a lot of people do it, but there's not a lot of people doing that on the boardwalk, on the bike path now. Our problem is on the boardwalk for this particular case. So that's an enforcement issue no matter what. We say these things like the e-bike on the boardwalk. Well, shouldn't be on the boardwalk. If you try to take e-bikes off the bike path right now, for one thing, it's not going to happen. So that's a crazy way of doing business in my mind, to say we're going to do something and then not enforce it, because that's what's going to happen. Because the captain, who's now the deputy police chief on our committee, was very adamant that 90% of the people do what they're supposed to do, and the other 5% of that, when they ask for compliance, they do it, and there's 5% that are not going to do it. So that's the problem right now. But you are not going to take e-bikes off the bike path, because 90% of them, you can't tell that they're e-bikes. So you're not doing a thing to get them. So are we going to enforce that starting now, that we don't allow e-bikes on the bike path? Because that's checkpoints. There's no other way to do that. I don't know how you could do it any other way. So I just, if we're going to say, okay, we're going to let, I'm all about Mr. McKenzie doing his good work up there to bring it for us, but somehow we're going to have verbiage that we're not enforcing the e-bikes on the bike path right now. And then we talk about the interface, and I'm down there as much as anybody else riding my bike, is that interface with the people coming out of the hotels is the same on a regular bike, it's the same on a 4-cart tourist bike, or it's the same on an e-bike. We had stats, I can get Mr. Caton up here if you like. We had stats given to us. There were no more accidents with e-bikes than there were with regular bikes in our city. There wasn't. So to keep lumping them into it's an e-bike problem, there's a Cat 1, a Cat 2, and a Cat 3. The ones that y'all are having the problems with are the Cat 3s. We need to learn that nomenclature and stick with it. And we don't want them on the boardwalk, and we don't want them motorized on the bike path. If they pedal, that's one thing. But when you have I would say, Amanda, the unanimous decision of this very diverse group for 95% of it, and then, Josh, I just want to ask you, when you say town center, we're not talking about the roads and stuff in town center. You mean on the sidewalks and stuff. We're all about the safety part of that, y'all. I get that. But just those things that we say when we got to clarify, we got to be very careful about how we do that. And my first thing I go back to, and then I'll be done, is I don't understand how you're going to do something here with enforcement on the boardwalk right now for the bike path. The boardwalk is simple. That's easy to enforce. Let's do that. Let's start with that. You want a middle ground? Start with the boardwalk with enforcement. I know our folks sitting back here don't care for that one but so much, but that's what we're going to have to ask them to do, right? So leave the bike path. Let it be that everybody on the committee voted for it to be on the bike path. So let that go through. That's why you have a mayor's task force. And once again, we went through this and we wouldn't bring it to you if we didn't think it was right. I fully understand what Councilman Cummings and others are saying, like, let's let Brent do his good work. I'm all for that. I believe in that. And I think we will get there. But I think we got a gray area here that's going to cause us more problems if we don't let the Cat 1s, 2s on the e-bike, on the bike path. Enforce on the boardwalk, all of them. Because then I'll ask y'all this, and then I promise, Michael, I'll be done.
You're just giving me license for later.
Is it, are we talking about rollerblades? Are we talking about segways? Are we talking about skateboards? You see, we had a very small cone of what we could focus, of what we could do. But I would ask any of us that are down there, there's a lot more to it than just the e-bikes. I think we're kind of getting lost in what it is down there. Now the rest of the city, that's another issue. Again, I had a motorcycle go by me the other day with a kid no helmet on, riding down Indian River Road on a wheelie. That's a problem, but that's not what we're talking about. All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Cash, and then Josh.
Yeah, I'm quick. I just want to say thank you to the Safety Task Force for your time and dedication. I appreciate these committees that are set up. I have reviewed the information. I hear my council colleagues. I just want to say thank you. I don't know if I want to be in the battle between the e-bikes, but I do want to say thank you for your time, talent, and your information that you put into these slides for council. So thank you.
Okay, Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take one more look at this. And it's not because I disagree with anything that has been said by any of my colleagues. And what I think it's, and you're right when we talk about like just the nomenclature and that being careful to overgeneralize, and not to overregulate and not to like expect too much out of our public safety folks. But I mean, what we're really looking for, I think, or what I'd be looking for is some like predictability, right? So like if I've got young kids or if I'm old and on a walker, or if I'm just like, I don't know, I'm kind of a klutz, so I limp around a lot and move slow. But I mean, if I'm just any of those people, I want to be able to cross that 10 feet or 8 feet or whatever safely. And predictability to me is not looking left and seeing somebody like way down the way and not expecting that they're going 30 miles an hour, as opposed to like, oh, it's a bike, it's going slower than that. So, and I said it, I don't know, it was a month or two ago. I mean, I've literally felt that rush of air, and you could feel it from a regular biker going, you know, at a full clip. But I mean, these class 3 ones, and if, you know, totally different, I mean, those things move. And, you know, if we're going to say, well, we're not going to make rules just because people can't enforce them. I've had lots of people ask me for speed limit signs in places, and people don't pay attention to those at all. And people go as fast as they reasonably think they can on a road. So I wouldn't say to somebody like on Independence, Patrick, by the way, between Haygood and Pleasure House Road, there's not a single 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. People have to guess how fast they go. And I forgot to tell you about that, but I'm telling you now. So, but people will go as fast as they reasonably think they can. And there's an expectation value when you approach a situation that, I mean, that you see somebody on a bike or somebody on a stroller or somebody, whatever, they're going to, in your mind, they're going but so fast. I don't know that we're ready for that fast on the bike lane. If that's 1 and 2, and those go as fast as regular bikes, giddy up. But if it's something that is going like 20, 30 miles an hour, and that is going to be a complete surprise to somebody. And the other thing that we have, and we're blessed to have in both Town Center and the resort, is our ambassadors. And those people are there block by block, and they got walkie-talkies. So I guarantee you that we can kind of, you know, there's nobody faster than a walkie-talkie. So at the very least, I sympathize with what the Vice Mayor has said, because I've experienced it myself, and I think we need to be you know, mindful of people who might not expect that kind of speed that quickly in a situation they're not familiar with.
Okay, we're going to go Michael, and then Stacy and Rosemary.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I will share in the previous remarks expressing appreciation for the work that the committee has performed, thoughtful, deliberative work, and all the staff support that went with that, and really appreciate the diversity of opinions that have been shared around this table, and I think it reflects the broader community conversations that happen around evolving and changing technologies that we're experiencing in all different aspects of our life. You know, we're having a conversation about data centers in a few minutes, and that I don't think is in any way unrelated to our adaptations to changing technologies that people find useful, but also problematic. And that's, I think, what we're seeing here. The way I see this, and I've been trying to process and listen and decide if I wanted to weigh in, I'm not sure that we're in a position to make any changes or recommendation at this time. Number one, most of the information that I've heard, at least today, but from my recollections from the previous presentation, is anecdotal and situational and observational rather than data driven. So my questions would be, has we performed a study about how many e-bikes are, if we're talking about the boardwalk bike lane specifically, have we performed any studies that would demonstrate how many e-bikes are actually being used on the boardwalk or on the boardwalk bike lane versus Atlantic Avenue or in general? What are the, is there any record of accidents involving injuries that require medical assistance related to those incidents? We did a similar study related to scooters at one time, I remember, when we were having a similar conversation. And I think, and I could go on, but you get the point. I think we could use some data to drive this conversation and some actual evidence rather than our feelings or our perceptions about being scared or uncomfortable versus the benefits that come with people who use e-bikes. I know people who use e-bikes, young people and seniors, who are loving the experience. They're going further, they're getting out, they're getting fresh air, they're exercising, they're pedaling and getting a little assist when they need it. And they're doing it safely and responsibly and pose no risk to the public. And I don't want to overregulate their positive experience at the resort or anywhere else. And so these are the things that I'm struggling with as we're contemplating a change in policy, that let me know that maybe I'm not sure that we need to move forward with any change right now, because the status quo is kind of, I'm not saying it's working, but I don't know that, I haven't heard anything that persuades me that necessitates a change at this time, because we're trying to balance all the different interests that exist there. The other thing is, sorry, I'm doing a Dave here, but I think you're more passionate about it than me. But the other thing is, people vote with their feet. In this case, they're voting with their pedals. And people like e-bikes. A lot of people like I was thinking about it on the morning after Christmas. Our e-bike problem doubled in Virginia Beach in 2025. I saw more e-bikes that they were under the tree. You know, people got them over the holidays. So we have to be thinking about the people we serve who are using the e-bikes for recreation and for other purposes, get to and from work, whatever. So, and then finally, if we made it, I guess the focus is on the bike lane at the boardwalk, and I do very much respect and appreciate your experiences there, and not diminishing them at all. It's just that they're banned now and people ride them. And so I think we need to somehow target the bad actors. So I would wonder what that data set would look like. Anyway, I know this is a circuitous list of comments, but those are kind of my thoughts on it. I'm not sure that we do need to make a change. And if we do, I think it needs to be evidence and data driven rather than and more dispassionate.
Council member, in response to one of your questions, we did look at accident data as a part of the task force work. We had not historically tracked e-bike accidents versus traditional bicycle accidents, but back in December when we were in the midst of our work, there had been in the last 18 months, so this was from December of 25, so in the previous 18 months there were 265 accidents throughout the city across that 18-month period. Based on conjectural data that we received from the hospitals, it appeared that we had 37 patients brought in related to e-bike incidents. So that would have been 14% of the total bicycle incidents across the city. That's not specific to the resort, but that's from across the city from the previous 18 months from December, just to let you know that we did look at that accident data. And we've now been making efforts to clarify when we do respond if it's a bicycle accident versus an e-bike.
Thank you. And that is good to know. I'm not sure what those numbers reveal really at this point, and that's citywide, but then you have to ask that citywide over the course of a year, how many of those were at the boardwalk or the bike lane of the boardwalk, if that's the point that we're talking about. But just as a follow-up, one data set that I am familiar with broadly that I've been able to glean from my own research is that it is true that the severity of injuries when involving an e-bike is enhanced relative to a traditional bicycle. So we do know that.
Right.
But then the information also showed that a lot of times they're senior citizens riding those. And so the injuries can be exacerbated by the fact that they're more likely to sustain those types of injuries so I don't know. I think there's a lot of analysis that has to occur here.
I was able to pull up some additional data. There was 13 bicycle accidents at the resort in the last 12 months. 7 of the 13 were e-bikes.
At the boardwalk, you said?
In the resort area, yes, sir.
Stacy, then Mark.
Councilman Hutchison is right. I was on the task force, and I think the big reason that I was on the task force is because I was the one that brought it to light, and I was the one that said, my thinking was, get rid of them, period. We don't need them. And I was swayed that e-bikes are here, they're here to stay, they serve a valuable purpose for a certain segment of the population. And I don't think I'm certainly not concerned about walking down the boardwalk and having some silver-haired people riding their e-bikes in a very responsible manner down the bike lane. That's not what we're concerned about. What we're concerned about is that 12-year-old, and I get it that a regular bicycle can do 20 miles an hour easily if pedaled fast enough. But 12-year-old's probably not going to take a regular bicycle and go 20 miles an hour down the boardwalk pedaling. But they're more inclined to do it when they have a throttle and there's no governor on what they can do. So that's what concerns people, in my experience, is that the younger kids that are on these e-bikes that have no idea what they're doing, they don't have the maturity to operate these things. And all I'm saying, and I'm not disagreeing with the task force, I'm saying that we're probably getting to a point where they're going to be more and more accepted and more in use. But until we have the guardrails, to me, it just seems we're getting the cart before the horse by taking the restriction, whether it's enforceable or not, but to take the restriction off of the boardwalk and to open it up to the Wild West before we have the restrictions on speed and age and where they can go and the restriction on the different classes. So I just think that taking action, and I'm not saying we're not going to do that in the future or we shouldn't, but doing that before we have these other guardrails in place, which I've already said, is premature. And I'm not trying to poo-poo what the task force did. They did a great job. It's awesome. I just think that listening to more and more public comment and digesting all of this, I think that's a simple ask. Let's have everything put up in place before we take the next step.
Okay, Worth and Rosemary.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an issue near and dear to me. This is half of my district, 3-mile long boardwalk. I've been down there several times looking at it. I've heard from a lot of different folks in my district, 6 different meetings, whether it be committee meetings or my community meeting itself, and folks are divided. Long story short, and I've been on both sides of this issue as well. And I mean, you're human if you're not on either side of this. This is a very tough one, restricting freedoms or not. But I want to pick up exactly what Councilman Cummings just said, and he said previously, as well as what Councilman Berlucci just said. I'd like to defer any decision on the bike path provision or not on the e-bike until we have some more guidelines, what's called traffic calming on a street. It could be speed tables, it could be speed limits, it could be signage, it could be ways to calm down the speed and control the traffic. I'd hate to restrict e-bikes at the same time. Public safety is paramount. So I think what I'm hearing from a couple of people is I agree with the task force. If once we get these guidelines in place, maybe we go forward and restrict or allow it. But right now, folks, it is not allowed. There are e-bikes on there, so we're not enforcing. It's a lot. It's called behavior at the oceanfront. It's a category of what I call behavior that we're trying to calm down on several places, and this is a part of that. So we're not even enforcing it today. So I agree. Let's defer. Let's try to get some staff input on how we can control if we do allow it. And if we can't get there, then maybe we don't allow it, but I think we can get there.
Hey, Rosemary and Michael.
I have a lot of thoughts bouncing around in my head. I'm not quite sure where to begin, but I will tell you that the people that live down there are terrified of these e-bikes. They truly are terrified, and it's mostly older people that live there. And if you have, talk about predictability, if you have a pet, you don't know if the pet, they see a leaf blow and they go zoom, and someone coming with a bicycle or e-bike may not see them. And the boardwalk is really meant for pedestrian use. It's not meant for the bikes. That's why there's a bike path. But these e-bikes it's just a whole nother animal. It's a whole nother animal that people are just not prepared for. My granddaughter, about 3 weeks ago, broke her leg and went to the urgent care center here in Virginia Beach. And my daughter said, "What cases do you see the most of?" Well, the first one was trampolines. The second one was not bicycles, but e-bikes. And I don't know that we can ever gather all the data from all these urgent cares and all the different ones, but they said that their second highest accidents that people come in for are from the e-bikes. So it's hard data to put your arm around, but these were the professionals saying that that's what came in the most. The task force didn't unanimously say we want them on the bike path. I think there was still dissension. It was not unanimous. And I live there. I see it every single day, and we're out there. And if you say you can be on the bike path, they're going to be on the boardwalk. They will be on the boardwalk because that's what they do now. And if you try to tell them to go on the bike path, they let you know where the sun doesn't shine. It's just a really hard thing. And I think there's two things that we really have. There's one thing we really haven't talked about, but I'm going to get to that in a second. But people don't know because there's no signage to tell them. Right now, there's no signage to say they're not allowed. So people don't know they can't be there. So, it's, as far as they're concerned, they're allowed. So you're going to have signage, but that gets to the point which we really haven't talked about. How is this going to be enforced? And that's where we have to hear from our public safety people. I mean, we're short 90 officers as it is. They've got lots of things that we're trying to talk to them about, enforcing marijuana and all the other things that they're going to have to enforce. How are we going to enforce this? But we do need to start out with signage. At least tell the people what is expected and what's not expected. I think Councilman Bellucci made, and also Remick made some really good points. I think we could go ahead with just about everything on this list, but maybe defer that particular recommendation and not take action on it and just leave it as it is for now. They're not allowed now, so I don't think we should be changing it. So I hope I put all those things together. Thank you.
Hey, Michael.
Thank you. Well, it's not a lot additional that needs to be said, but if I could rewind the tape, I would also have added that I'm concerned about the burden of enforcement on our police department. And I shared that previously. I've shared that in public and private conversations about this. We have behavior issues at the resort. And as dangerous as they may or may not be, riding e-bikes falls very low in the priority of behavioral issues that exist at the resort. And I would like to see those law enforcement resources be directed at preventing and pursuing violent and property crime rather than, whatever else is going on with where you're not supposed to be on an e-bike. Especially in the context of, we know citywide, we're down one precinct. I know that Plus Up in a robust fashion, and we have great support from our sheriff's deputies during the summer and during special events. But in the grand scheme of things, and I do understand how it makes people feel, but with limited resources for law enforcement, their job, in my opinion, should not be, chasing after kids who are going a little faster than other people are comfortable with. By the way, the kids are loving it, but that's another story. And they have, by the way, they have a right to have a little fun too. It's worse kinds of fun to be having out there. So those are just some of my thoughts. And then finally, I probably shouldn't ask you this, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. Maintaining the status quo. If you're just normally using an e-bike on the boardwalk bike path, even though it's banned, do you anticipate having an interaction with our police department or some kind of enforcement? If you're not acting crazy, and I know you can't say that it's going to recommend, but I'm asking, can you anticipate that type of enforcement?
The police department does on occasion have folks enforce it and try to talk to people about keeping stay on the bike path currently right now. Will we be able to get enhanced enforcement? I don't necessarily feel like we're going to be able to. The other challenge as well that we get is that if folks have, if they tell us they have an ADA or a disability need, the police can't question that regardless of where they're using the e-bike as well. So that comes into play in there as well.
Hutch?
So just a couple of quick clarifying things. I won't take long. One thing is the Cat 1 bike has no motor like that, so it's not motorized like the other two. It can only go when it's being pedaled. So if it's on the bike path, which 90% of them are, you're never going to be able to know the difference. So we really need to stop saying e-bikes on the boardwalk when you have a lot of bikes that are on the bike path, especially like the Cat 1. I'm just saying, just so you know that really stop. It's just a regular bike that gives some people that need a little bit of assistance. It's not anything. So we're going to have that clarification, or however that goes. The thing about enforcement, Captain Wessler Chief Wessler is not here right now, but he was very adamant that that's going to be near impossible with the thousands of bikes down there to enforce it. So I don't see it happening, but whatever, that can be made at a later determination. Yeah, that's good enough. Thank you.
Okay, Amelia?
I was just going to look at what happens at our area, the town center.
Right.
Because it's not a one straight path. We have people coming in between, just jotting out, and we're not happy with that.
On the road or on the bike path? I mean, on the
people are coming, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Shouldn't be allowed.
That's just my opinion on that. And one or two of the e-bikes people end up going up the purple parking, going up that way and, having joy rides. It's not as dangerous, but on the main road, we have little kids and people going to Legos and a lot of the other areas, Apex. And I don't think it's, can be monitored as well as over at the Ocean Print.
Okay, Hutch, and
I
then
just wanted to say, sorry, the one thing that I really think that might be a middle ground here is that, looking at you and these two back here, is that the enforcement does need to start, we could start working on that, is that the Cat 3s and the ones, well, any bike, but the ones that are on there, that are on the boardwalk can be enforced. Those numbers are a lot lower. So start that enforcement. That will start to help us get that under control. The other is that I've had at least 3 people tell me that, well, it's sometimes hard to ride on the bike path when you have pickup trucks parked on the bike path while they're doing the yard maintenance, the lawn and all that stuff. So they have to come out and then go back in. So they've been yelled at for that. And they're like, well, what do you want us to do? So, and these are people riding regular bikes. So I'm just saying there's always going to be an interface problem down there. But I really think if we stuck to enforcement on the boardwalk, that would help clear up a lot of this stuff with people that are nervous. Just my 2 cents on maybe a way to get moving forward together.
Okay, Rosemary.
Can we talk about the state and what can do to represent our feelings on that. I brought up having a tougher policy like New Jersey and Pennsylvania where they have to be a certain age, and I don't want to set what the age is, but age and licensed, and by being licensed, they probably have to take a test so they know what the rules are. A lot of these young kids, like when you're 6 years old, you learn how to ride a bike, and then, you really don't know what all the rules are. What the rules are, and probably some insurance, and to look at what other states have been doing because this is not unique to us. How do y'all feel about, we're very lucky to have Brent on that task force.
Okay. All right, Stacy.
As I said earlier, I think it's an easy decision to make to have some type of age restriction, and that's got to come from the state. So at least an age restriction.
Okay, Hutch.
We also did say about speed, suggested speed signs. We couldn't do a speed limit sign. And on the regular road, when they're riding on the regular road, they can go as fast as a car. But on the bike paths or boardwalk, and not the boardwalk, say we all do it. The bike paths of any type in the city we could say suggested 8 mile an hour, something like that. Anything, because that's what Captain Wessler was saying. That will help because people do want to abide by the rules. So that's what he was saying. If we could get something like that, but we were told by legal that you couldn't just have a speed limit. We can't make our own speed limit even for our bike paths. That to me would be one that we should be able to do. When you're riding on that, 7, 8 mile an hour, something that is very pedestrian. Will it fix everything? Maybe not, but it's not 20 or 28 miles an hour.
Okay. All right, let me say, this is one of what I call a dilemma type issue, because I really agree with Rosemary and Josh in principle. But on the other hand, whether we like it or not, we have a disruptive technology upon us. It kind of reminds me a little parallel when Ubers and Lyft came about, what it did to the industry. And once again, we had to accept it and embrace it. And whether we like it or not, e-bikes are going to be here to stay. And I can tell you, those scooters that we had a couple of years ago, they drove me nuts. And people would let them pile up on the sidewalks and almost got run over. I see 2 people riding on it. I see 8-year-olds riding on it. I think what we should do, and what I'm kind of hearing, the buzz out, rather than acting immediately on, let's get things in place first. Let's find out what we can do statutorily first. I am a big believer that there should be an age restriction on these things. Normal bicycles, no problem. But I'm seeing kids on the street, with these e-bikes with no helmets on or anything of that nature, and they're on major thoroughfares and things, that's not good. The other thing is, too, that, I would have a very strong objection for anything above, class 1 or 2. They're just too fast, they're too out of control, things of that nature. I think strict enforcement on the boardwalk is essential. But boy, I'll tell you what, even on a crowded boardwalk day, we get the rollerbladers, the skateboarders, things of that nature, that thing, can get, kind of hairy. But once again, I think if we get the plan in place first, I think there was a mention of cart before the horse. Let's put some of these rules up there. There's signage, there's nothing to tell somebody that somebody's doing wrong. And so you're just going to go out and kind of do it. But the other thing is, I think we might be able to do, when I was in London, Amanda, you remember when we were crossing the street? It would say right on the thing, look right, look left.
Yes, sir.
I think that might be helpful, because I'll tell you what, sometimes I'm walking, and I'm just not paying attention, and you cross, the break in the boardwalk to get to the street. I almost got it, especially those little thing for people that self-pedal. they take, a lot of the room up there too. But, I think we got to do things slow and deliberately. And I'm going to bring up, like I said, I'm real concerned about the safety, but I'm also concerned about the reality and the enforcement. And I think the point, our police, a lot easier to enforce on the boardwalk. That's more visible than on the bike path. But, a very dear friend of mine texted me today, Bill Gambrell. And he was on the task force, and he brought up a point that Michael brought up. A lot of elderly folks use this as, almost maybe a primary source of transportation, at the thing. So we got to do our best to accommodate, the groups that we're going to do. And as of right now, some of the, I guess, class 1 Hutch, I can't tell those, from normal bike that you would buy at Walmart.
At the bottom bracket, you can't tell.
Yeah, and so, but once again, should the direction be, let's put all the plans, the signage, the statutory empowerment from Richmond, let's get that in place first.
So, Mayor, what I heard was to move forward with the task force recommendations as it relates to communication, education, signage, the General Assembly policy discussions, and then not move forward with the one to amend the city code. That's what I'm
Does that
hearing
make
from the
sense?
discussion.
Okay, I think we go Amelia and Stacy.
Well, I was just saying, make sure that you have set aside resources to implement what we're doing, where we're taking that funds from.
Hey, Stacy.
I would also like to see us ask the state for age restrictions.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
I think we should add that to the task force.
Licensing.
We can work to develop some draft language for your review.
Sure.
And discussion in advance of any.
We can just, we'll have Brent, because Brent needs to do that now as part of the work group of the state. So we'll take that as direction and work towards the age restriction and any other kind of like licensing requirements that the state may want to bring forward, that we'll support that.
Hey, Michael?
I think we need to have, perhaps I'm the minority here, but I don't know enough about licensing and age restrictions to sign on as a supporter of that initiative. For me, I'll speak for myself. I said young people love to ride them. They have fun riding them. They ride them safely. They wear helmets. I have no idea what the bureaucracy involving licensing e-bikes would be for those young people or for adults. I'm not comfortable signing on to that at this time. I'll just express that.
Michael, what about, the class 1 and class 2? I think it's applicable, but anything that can go up to 30 miles an hour, even more. I see some of these ones that could really fly.
Sorry, maybe Dave.
I was saying, I would think y'all would just give us some information back on this, kind of like Brent does.
Yeah, so basically the task force is just meeting and giving recommendations to the General Assembly, right? So like ultimately, whatever is going to come to them will still have to get taken up by the General Assembly. So there will be time for Brent to kind of let the council know where the General Assembly is, where the task force is going with their recommendations ultimately to the governor and the General Assembly. So it's not necessarily pouring anything in concrete, but what we're hearing is that council is open to some sort of restrictions to it, right? And to include possibly age and possibly some other kind of registration stuff.
That's what I want clarity on, to include possibly. It was unclear to me based on the previous conversation that we were expressing our support for licensure and for age restrictions. What age, I don't know. But as long as our understanding of it is that we're including that as a possibility of options that we could express, but we're not taking a position on it.
That is correct.
That's what I was just going to ask, is could we have, like Councilman Berlucci was asking, is to have some more data, as far as, is it age related? Like, what is that? Like, they might come back and say that it is or it isn't, across the state. That's all. I'm sorry, I shouldn't turn around so much. If I was sitting on the other side, it'd be easy. Is that, there could be a couple things to what Councilman Berlucci and quite frankly myself want to have. I'm not opposed to some lights, especially for the Cat 3s. So how would that look? If as soon as we can get that.
And all those things will be discussed as part of the task force. And I'm assuming that's how the task force is going to go. They're probably going to say class 3s have a certain degree of requirements, class 1s and 2 have a certain amount as well. Right. Yeah. And we'll make sure that we communicate out when we get to different milestones before they have their final recommendation.
Right. We're just going to study the realm of possibilities.
Yes.
And then we can have the meaningful discussions. And, let's find out what we can do, what we can't do, and then based on that, we can get to a decision. Okay? Are we good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to data centers.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll have staff from our planning department and our IT department, and they'll brief city council about our data center regulations. And just to clarify, this is not a briefing about any potential data centers. There's none in the queue. But this is an opportunity to talk about what data centers are, also what the zoning regulations in place are as it relates to data centers, and seek council guidance as it relates to this council wants us to enhance our regulations to include a conditional use permit for data center regulations. So go ahead, Kathy, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager. As you may know, staff briefed the Planning Commission in April and provided general information on data centers and how our zoning ordinance addresses them. From that presentation, a lot of conversation was generated on whether or not City Council should consider further restriction on data centers and add a discretionary approval process. Peter Wallace and I are here today to give you a more detailed briefing on data centers. There's a lot of misinformation, as I'm sure you know, regarding data centers, and we'd like to provide some additional detail about what they are and what they are not, and specifically what we have here in Virginia Beach. So Peter will walk you through infrastructure and data center types and the needs of data centers, and then I'll go over the environmental impacts, our current zoning ordinance as it pertains to data centers, and then discuss how you may want to consider how our ordinance can be amended should you wish to place more regulation around the use. Peter?
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, and staff. So what we're going to do is talk about data centers, as Kathy mentioned. And I want to start out by saying that not every building that looks like a data center is really a data center. There are scales. You're going to hear me talk about scales today in my presentation. But it is because of those fundamental difference that varies. And we'll talk about from the very basic one, from a subsea landing site to a hyperscaler data center, which is a whole computing different storage needs. So I want to start out with that. So before I begin, let's talk about the subsea cable landing site. The main purpose of subsea cable site is to transmit fiber, which is really, fiber is really a light in a glass. That's what it is. From Europe, from the entire globe, and we have that currently in Virginia Beach. We have Global Links, Lexus, we have a few companies here that does that very well, all right? So again, I want to emphasize, that's not necessarily a power consumption need. That is really a connection between Europe, Asia, the rest of the market, to the United States. And we have that termination here. It requires very little computing power, no water consumption when it comes to operating that. The second one is a co-location. That's where the same building could also serve as a co-location. The minimal rack spaces for providers such as, you may hear Cox, Verizon, they want to sell you internet services. So they will go into this co-location and tie into this network, provide that very fast access that you need, the need for speed, right? That's what they're going to sell you. So that's where that co-location comes in. Very minimal impact, once again, when it comes to power consumption or water for cooling. The next phase is the data center. That's really have a need for storage and computing. If you have a need to have bits and bytes, which is what computers really are, to have heavy transaction, you need a data center. You could have a closed one like what we have here in the city. It's within the building. It's not standalone. Or you can definitely have a large-scale, self-contained data center. And again, it varies as far as consumption goes. Then, of course, you have the hyperscalers. You have heard about AI. If you have a need for AI, the hyperscaler is what's going to get you there. These are the cloud. These are the Meta. These are the Amazon. These are the huge global presence we have in the world. Those are strictly a different footprint, off the chain, and I'm sure Kathy's going to talk about that. But so I'm talking about the difference between those really is scale between those particular facilities. All right, so the subsea cable once again is talking about it has a meet me room where we talk to the Cox, the Verizon, or any ISPs that's internet service provider that connect. That's its basic function. And it terminates that glass from international to us locally. That's exactly what it does. And it repeats the signal. The reason why it doesn't have the power consumption, it is repeating the transmitters between here and onto the subsea cables to say light. Repeat every so often so there's no heavy usage of power in the facilities when it comes to be hardened. The co-location, once again, it interconnects fiber. You can definitely have a little more power and cooling, depends on how many servers, how many network gears you have in that room, but it's a small scale. Data center, like I said before, is a heavy digestion appetite for computing needs, and it varies. It varies, depends on your business purpose and the reason why you want to do that purpose in the first place. So I want to make sure we understand that. And of course, the hyperscalers, we talked about before, sits by itself. Now, I want to talk about the power consumption. But before I do, I want to make sure that we can look at it from the kilowatts to the megawatts, because I want to show you the difference between the usage. Now, be mindful that a regular household could use anywhere between 800 kilowatts per month. Okay, it's very small scale. Okay, that's a regular household. Then you step up into a co-landing sites. A very large scale one could go to 5 megawatts. 1,000 kilowatts makes 1 megawatts. So I want to have that distinction so that you can understand the course of what we're talking about. And that is what really powers the household in the US. That's an average household power. And you go to co-location, which is about 50, and of course a data center, anything 100 megabytes or more would be considered hyperscale. And that's a whole bunch of servers attached to those facilities to make it look the same. Now, again, from the outside, it may look like it's a hardened facilities, no windows, it's not pretty to the eyes, but it's for that purpose. You gotta be hardened, you gotta be secure. And the basic thing is to have a backup power outside to provide power to the system that you're running. Why would you pick one of these locations? From a cable landing site, you would need, for strategy-wise, let's say you want to start up a new startup company. You need a SaaS solution because you don't have the wire beams to really have you built your own data center. So you would connect to that data center to provide the coverage, the internet speed that you desire. That's the main purpose of the landing site, otherwise known as CLS. All right. So, and again, the Cox and the Verizon, they will also attach to that. As far as the co-location, think about the co-location as if you want to connect your business from the United States to Europe, you can, in that cable landing site, in the same room, cross-connect a connection, and it connects you from, let's say, Spain to the United States, just like that. You don't have to keep building data centers every site. And that's the beautiful thing about the connect room, the meet me room. It does that for you without major expenses on the organization, as if you were actually in a different country, right in the same room. That's the major difference between them. As it comes to data center again, if you finance healthcare industry, all of the governments, you're going to need a secure space for data centers. Scale, once again, varies. Depends on how far you want to go, how fast you want to go, what you have for computing. It makes a difference. We talk about the hyperscalers. Those are going to be extremely expensive, but we know that Loudoun County is considered one of the data center capital of the world. And the reason why is because you have a lot of these hyperscalers in Loudoun County. We don't have that here in Virginia Beach. Okay, but these are, I want to make sure that's clear, that those are some of the various difference between these facilities that could look like a data center and act like one, but they're different purpose in what they serve. So, data center going to require cooling. You're going to have to heat it up, cool it down. That's just the nature of the game. And that goes beyond just the office spaces. We're just talking about the equipment. A server requires a lot of cooling. Being in the computer industry for more than 40 years, I got to tell you something. What you don't want to hear if you walk into a data center is going to be quiet. That means something is wrong. You gotta appreciate that hum. When you walk in the computer and hear that hum, the HVAC is kicking, that's a beautiful thing. If you have dead silence, something wrong is about to happen, already happened. All right, so I just want to paint that. So it does require hefty coolant for that. And of course, size and energy usage depends and varies. Hyperscalers. You heard about the public clouds. Like I said, the Meta, and they're building these now for AI. That's how AI can learn. It needs vast amount of data to learn and relearn. And so therefore, having something like this where it has all the computing power and the different source of power to cool it down and heat it up differs. Okay, we're talking about, when you're talking about 3 million square feet or more of acreage to do this. And it's a lot of acres of land to consume and also to power up. So it's a gigantic difference between those two. Co-location, again, providing space and connectivity to third parties. I said with the Cox, the Verizon, the Loomis, all of those that are currently here. And we have about maybe 5 ISPs now in Virginia Beach or in Hampton Roads. So we are really growing. When I started with the beach 9 years ago, we only had 1.5. I say 1.5 because Verizon wasn't everywhere. Now we have choices. It's because of the subsea cable landing site that bring that particular strength to our area that the ISPs could go ahead and tap into and then sell it to the business, to your homes and to the business side. So it's optimized to speed. The edge computers, look at this as low latencies, probably you probably wouldn't recognize it so much in a smaller space. It's considered a telco, really. It powers your equipment up. And if you have a problem with speed or latency between two different buildings, you could add that to help you boost your signal. Okay, that's kind of for what it does. Again, minimal should not be in a conversation when it comes to power or water consumption because it's used as very, very basic. It's just direct traffic back and forth, all it does. On-prem data centers are owned and hosted by the organization. They actually have very low consumption. They don't need special water events to cool them down. They just use regular HVAC. And normally, if you don't want to go to the cloud, you want to keep everything somewhat private, you have that need for data center. The city obviously have one. We also have co-location in case of redundancy and backup. Something failed. We have a big one that comes through the Hampton Roads. We have co-location out of this area so that we can real connect and continue broadcasting council meetings from anywhere. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to make sure that we paint. when it comes to the data center and the various differences between them. Kathy?
Thank you, Peter. So now we're going to move from the technical aspects of data centers and really start talking about land use and future considerations. Data center sites require access to transmission lines and generally flat land sites. They want close proximity to their customers and population centers. Newer facilities that are using AI workloads are large and therefore require larger sites. And as you heard Peter mention, since noise can affect neighboring communities, many data centers are looking for more rural sites because of the noise. For environmental impacts, the diesel generators used for backup power emit air pollutants. These are regulated by the Department of Environmental Quality using state and national standards, which limit use and allowable emissions. A large percentage of data centers use the same amount of water as average office buildings, but of course, hyperscaler centers may have larger water usage, and this all varies on the cooling system, and often the water is recycled within the system. Noise has been an issue for some data centers, which can negatively affect neighboring communities, as already mentioned. The noise is typically a low-frequency hum, and most are not audible past the property line. Here in Virginia Beach, we are the landing point for several transoceanic fiber connection cables, and the mega data center outside of Richmond is where these cables terminate. We have 2 co-location facilities in Virginia Beach, Global Links, which is located in Corporate Landing, and is 9,700 square feet on a 7-acre parcel. Telsius is the other co-location facility, and that also is located in Corporate Landing with an over 21,000 square foot building on a 3.4 acre site. So for our zoning ordinance, data centers are not specifically listed as data centers in our zoning code. They're categorized as wholesaling, warehousing, storage, or distribution establishments, and are permitted by right only in industrial districts. They are considered compatible in the noise zones and APZ 1 and 2, but not compatible in the clear zone. Standard setbacks apply, so if these are next to a residential or apartment district, a 25-foot setback applies. From a hotel, office, or business district, it's 15 feet. So as I mentioned at the beginning, staff gave Planning Commission a very general briefing on data centers in April 2026. During the commission's discussion, they raised several concerns pertaining to infrastructure needs, fire and building code requirements, high utility usages, land use impacts, and sound impacts. They followed up with a letter to City Council asking for Council to consider amending our code to add data centers as a specific use and add a conditional use permit process for industrial zones. Should you choose to amend the code, additional restrictions Council could place on data centers include limiting districts where data centers can be located, increasing setbacks from residential property, limiting size, requiring a sound study, placing time limits on generator testing, requiring additional screening, and a safety plan. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Okay, Stacy, then Rosemary, then Michael. Barbara.
So, Kathy, we were told the definition of data centers includes 4 different categories that are considered data centers. So, and then throughout the second half of the presentation, I guess the term data centers was used overall.
Globally.
Just globally describing all 4 categories.
Right.
So my question is, the recommendation of, or the consideration of limiting data centers or putting restrictions on the ability to develop a data center within these areas. Are we talking about all 4 categories? Are we talking about the latter 2 categories? Are we talking about, let's have a further discussion? So, because some of these data centers, seem to be pretty small and self-contained.
That's right.
Are we talking about those? Or are we only talking about the hyperscale data centers? So in the last slide, we had the recommendations or the proposals. Are we talking about all 4? Or are we just talking about the latter 2 or the one?
So we're talking about them globally, and that's where that conditional use permit process can come into place, because then you can start putting further restrictions on this, like size. If you want only a certain size and below, that's where you can address that.
So, and then the staff doesn't know where this is going to end yet. We're asking council, does council want us to explore this? Because likely what would happen is the planning staff would work on putting together a presentation, a recommendation, and options for planning commission to consider advising city council where you want to land. So we don't necessarily know where we're going to land with this, but we plan to bring the information to the planning commission and to the public, and then through a funnel work down on what they feel is the most advantageous recommendations and requirements they want to bring forward to the council for consideration.
Well, so if I can just finish, then I think my thought is that these seem to be 4 very distinct, different issues, and I would think that we would treat them as 4 distinctly different issues and not a global. How we get there, I don't know, but I don't think we globally say for all, as they're described, but that they're each treated separately.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Oh, I think.
Okay, let's go with Worth and then.
I'll go then. I mean, I was in the queue. I don't know.
I have a feeling everybody.
All right. I think we're all going to go.
Just a thought.
Let me jump in. And Ms. Jarrett was here, and she said she may be available to come up, but I would like you to if you could. But I want to start with a comment first on the question of conditional use permit. I 100% support adopting a process by which a conditional use permit would need to be obtained for a data center. And I think that could apply even potentially to all 4. And that's another part of the point that I'll make in just a few moments. But we've heard from the public when we have seen the conversations that have occurred, and we know the limitations that exist in land use in Virginia Beach. And what I've heard loud and clear is that the public wants some assurances and regulation related to any potential data center use within our city. And I think that's appropriate. I think we should respond to it, and I think we need to do it quickly. We cannot wait for this technology to outpace our zoning regulations, even though in many ways it already has. Additionally, I think we owe it to, I'm sure we owe the public those types of assurances that they're seeking, to know that the types of data centers, and I forget the names exactly, that are the high power, high water consuming, high space consuming data centers are ones that we're not going to be living with here in Virginia Beach. And I think my sense is that from the public and from members of this body and from the professional staff is that we're not interested in and don't have those currently and are not recruiting them or pursuing them. And so our zoning regulations could and should reflect that, and implementing the conditional use program as part of the process would provide that assurance, and it would give localities control on any potential data center site if one is proposed. And I think we should move forward that right away as quickly as possible. Time is of the essence. We don't have a lot of time because we're seeing the proliferation of these around the country that's causing alarm among the public, and we need to be responsive. So I would just say that. And what would be included in the CUP? everything above conditional use permit. You know, all of those, the sound study, the time limits, the screenings, the safety plans, that would all be part of the process, and it should be. But really what that leads to, and it's Kathy or potentially Ms. Jarrett, who leads the economic vitality portfolio, I think it's important that you may speak to this very specifically about from our economic development point of view, because there is misinformation. Could you speak to, is our economic development department actively recruiting data centers? Do you anticipate the type of use of data centers that are raising these alarms nationally and regionally and within Virginia Beach, and kind of help to provide more clarity around those uses or potential uses and what your departments are doing in that regard? And then also, I think further articulate the differences between the necessary data centers, as Mr. Cummings said, that are contained and small footprint and highly secure, that are related to an important industry that has emerged in Virginia Beach, which is the transatlantic cables, and how those are different and how those are necessary for the cables that we have and optimizing our opportunities there, but the difference in delineation between those types of AI, mega power, mega water data centers, and I think we'd even love some assurances.
Sure, absolutely. So as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, the city of Virginia Beach is home to several subsea cables that have connected the United States to Europe and further abroad. We do have the two co-location facilities that were outlined, Global Links and Telsius, that allow utilization of those cables. However, we are not actively recruiting data centers or the hyperscalers. We do not have any projects in queue for those types of projects. As you all know, we're constantly having discussions regarding available industrial land in the city of Virginia Beach, and based on our current tech structure, this would not be an industry that we would actively recruit. It's not a highest and best use of the property that we have available in the city, and so this is not a target industry in any way for our economic development team. As for all the reasons that were just outlined in the previous discussion, the acreage requirements that they have, the power demands that they have, the water usage demands that they have, the data center and the hyperscaler are different product. And so what we have supported is the landing of the subsea cables for internet capacity, for the ability to utilize those subsea cables in the co-location facilities, but we are not in discussions or recruiting data centers or hyperscalers, and would be supportive of efforts that the planning department would undertake to update our zoning ordinance and, as the manager mentioned, have a discussion with the Planning Commission that would ultimately make a recommendation to this body about what those restrictions would include.
Thank you. I don't think anything needs to be, I mean, that was beautifully stated. But the headlines coming out of that are, you're not recruiting them. You would agree with the reasonable restrictions.
Correct.
On those higher intensity uses that are not related to the subsea cables. And that's not, from your professional standpoint, an appropriate fit in Virginia Beach. And I don't know anyone around the table or within the city organization, and if there is someone, please let me know, who is supportive of those uses. And then finally, just a final question and point, because it has been raised that there are discussions ongoing about the comprehensive plan and about expansion for industrial or other entrepreneurial uses within the ITA for economic development purposes. But I just could you just put a clarifying point on, are any of those uses related to data centers? Would you support the use of a data center as part of that expansion? Is that on the development authority or economic development department's radar in any way? Or
absolutely. So data centers are not being contemplated for location in the ITA. Now, certainly land use decisions are those of the city council and the planning commission, but that's not what's being actively recruited. That's not under discussion with the development authority or city staff. We certainly take the guidance and advice of the planning commission and city council. But as I stated earlier, We absolutely support the update of the City of Virginia Beach zoning ordinance, as was discussed, and are not actively recruiting data centers, and that's not being contemplated as a part of the ITA master plan update.
Thank you. Sorry, one final question. Appreciate your articulation. What industries are you recruiting?
So we, as everyone here knows, our 4 top economic drivers are tourism, the defense industry, advanced manufacturing, as well as agriculture. So those are our top 4 industries in the City of Virginia Beach, and we base our recruitment around those 4 target industries. That's our primary focus. We also are very intentional about working with our existing business community to support them and staying in the City of Virginia Beach and also growing here. And so our key target and strategic plan is based around those 4 key areas: tourism, defense, advanced manufacturing, and agriculture.
And those 4 key areas are what's being contemplated as any part of
our economic development strategy
in the ITA master plan or otherwise.
In the ITA in the entire City of Virginia Beach.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, before I get to Worth, Barbara, and Rosemary, let me just say, piggybacking on here, at this point, I don't think we should do anything above co-location. I mean, we've had those co-location to 2 facilities there for years, without incident. And at this point, I would really recommend that, ordinance just banning data centers in Virginia Beach. Yeah, and the other thing is too, and sometimes I get criticized for saying it, we're running out of land. And these things, and we need revenue generation to take care of our stormwater obligation, which are going to be in the billions going forward. And if we're going to do something, let's do something that's practical, but also, these things are not good neighbors. And, I mean, I wouldn't want to live near one. I think a lot of other people. But, the thing is with the consumption of it, the complexity to operate these centers. So I'm going to make a recommendation that, we can, hey, the subsea cables, I mean, that's putting us on the map. Rosemary's been working on broadband. These are the practical things that we need. And the thing is, going above a co-location, I just think we just gotta, let people know that we're, not the Virginia Beach ain't for you.
I love it.
Okay, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll second that. So if you could go to page 3, because that's the 4 categories. And I just don't think data centers will even look at Virginia Beach for the reasons that you've heard today. Storm, water, storms, coastal location. But so I guess it's an I1 or I2 zoning, we would ban data centers and hyperscalers, not that they would look here, but it would just go outright and then we'd put conditional use permit, because we do have to protect the subsea cable landing sites. That is a precious thing that we have here, and so my question I'm going to have about that in a minute, and also include the co-location, as the mayor said, but require our conditional use permits on those. So, Ms. Jarrett, could you tell us with the subsea cable landing, where do the subsea cables go from here? They don't go to a data center here in the city. It would go to other locations.
So Peter can expand on that. I believe they go outside of the Richmond region and into Northern Virginia.
Right.
Yes, so as the subsea cables come from Europe into the United States, which, by the way, Virginia Beach is becoming the epicenter of such landing site, and it's very scaled for the future as well. So it goes to Richmond, and from Richmond, go up to Loudoun County. Again, Loudoun County, as I said before, is the data center capital of the world. And so the need for speed exists there, but we don't have to have that facilities here. You have that the connection to make it happen.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we lack definition in what we have in our code. And it's very broad when we say industrial. And so when we don't have a definition for light industry in our code, then anything goes. And I think that's why data centers, since that's essentially what they are, as broad as they are, just is industry, and that's all we have. And so that's one of the things that is, being recommended with this update of the ITA plan, is that we define light industry. Right now, it's just wide open. And so that's the problem, I think, because we don't have a definition. Wholesaling and storage and packaging and distribution and retailing and so forth are light industry. And so we really need, as we're going forward, and I think we need to do it sooner rather than later. I don't think we ought to take the time that it's going to take us to do our whole code, but we need to do this now, because this is when we're looking at this issue. Last night, the Planning Commission had a meeting because they're looking at this whole question. I know that you all have been listening to Clay Dills and his update of the interfacility traffic area and vicinity master plan, and that's been repeated in many places around the city. And I have to tell you, it was an overflow crowd there last night with that, because there is so much interest around the city with this whole question of what is industry. And when we're talking about what we have historically had for this area as agriculture, sports tourism, recreation, and preservation, and we're going to insert industry, we really need to know what we're inserting. And so we need that definition, and I think that's what would help us here, because it's such a broad thing. When you say any of these things, it really is intent rather than in some kind of definition. And I think as people are looking at what they can expect to have next to them, when they look at some of these things as being in the same category as whatever might have been light industry, and of course this whole proposal that we have before us to expand the Innovation Park, which was supposed to have looked like this when we planned it for the biomedical park, and we know what's there doesn't look anything like this. And when people are looking at expanding asking to expand the Innovation Park, they want to know what it's going to be expanded for. And these kinds of definitions that we have up here just are wide open. And so we really, really need to think about, when we say we're going to put industrial, light industrial in an area, is there a difference between light industrial and heavy industrial? Right now, we don't have any difference. And so we really do need to talk about it in the broad sense, because our folks really do want to know what we are meaning when we say light industry. And when you look at this category as being qualifying, and as it is right now, without a conditional use permit for it, this would be by right. And so I guess if someone wanted to apply for this, it's by right at this point. And so we really need to look at this whole question.
Okay, Rosemary?
I agree with the mayor about us banning it. I think that is a fantastic idea. And do we still have to run through, if we wanted to do that, do we still need to go through the Planning Commission to ask for that and then come back to us? What is that process?
Yes, it'd be a discretionary approval process through the Planning Commission and City Council for adoption.
And I want to thank the Planning Commission for writing the letter and bringing this up and bringing it, forward like this. I don't know if anybody remembers when we had the Bitcoin Center. Oh boy, we had no idea what we were getting into when that came here to Virginia Beach. It created so much noise, and it was over in the Kempsville area, I think near Mount Trashmore.
Bench Road.
It was extraordinarily disruptive to the neighbors. So we certainly don't want anything like that ever again. But Virginia Beach is not a good fit for these things. And I'm agreeing with what I think Stacy was saying about, and the mayor, about banning the data centers and the hyperscalers. We don't want to mess up what we have going with the subsea cables. They're doing a fantastic job, And it also helps to bring business into our city. And there's very small scale for what they do, which is really going to make Virginia Beach the center of subsea cables on the whole East Coast, which is fantastic. So anyway, I wanted to say that. And however we can speed this along to do this banning, I think it would be fantastic. We need to send it to the Planning Commission to ask for them to do that, then get that ball rolling. Because right now, I think as Barbara kind of mentioned, we don't have any rules or regulations. They could come in, even though we're not a good fit for it because we don't have a lot of the land. We're the wild, wild west. They could come in by right and do something. So we need to get something in place.
Now, let me ask you, we have to go back to the planning commission, or we just can't decide?
They recommend.
You're making it a non-permitted use under the zoning ordinance.
Okay, could we get a resolution going to that effect? And can I ask all the council people to sign on to this?
Absolutely.
Okay, but we'll go for, Cash, you are up, and then Michael, and then Amelia.
Yes, so I agree with you, Mayor, 100%. I've got 13 plus emails sitting in my inbox for no data centers. So for that being the case, we work up a, I wanted to say a resolution, but I think you put a discretionary, so where it comes back to City Council, we make this an ordinance, and we follow through with it, and we make our commitment to our people sound, clear, and professional.
You got it. Michael, and then Amelia?
Thank you, Mayor.
And Jen.
I want to offer a point of clarification that I think needs to be stated. There are two industrial codes. One is I-1 and one is I-2. One is more intensive than the other. And I think it's sometimes referred to as heavy industrial and light industrial, but there are in fact two distinct and enumerated industrial codes. And I think it's problematic when we share to the public that we don't have definitions that do exist. And Ms. Warren, I wonder if you could share just a brief description of the differences between those distinctions as it relates to city code. And could you also make sure the council receives a copy of the differences of those codes and
Absolutely.
the definitions contained within? Because when we tell the public that something doesn't exist that does, it diminishes confidence in the deliberations that occur here. And I've expressed this previously. I think that it's problematic for policy-making discussions, but it also can sometimes be used as a technique or a tactic. And I have a concern about that, and I think it's important that we have a discussion on the merits of the issues rather than either intentionally or unintentionally spreading misinformation.
Okay, let's go with Kathy first, and then Barbara.
Okay, so within the zoning ordinance, there's our various zoning districts, and they all have use tables. So within the I-1 use table, you can see what is permitted, what you'd have to get a CUP for, and what is not permitted. Same thing with the I-2. So that's what defines the difference in each of those.
Is I-2 sometimes referred to as light industrial?
I-2 is heavy.
So I-1 would be sometimes referred
Correct.
to as light. And definitions do exist for both.
Yes. Well, so Councilmember Henley is correct. There's more of an intent paragraph that talks about that and what uses are in each of those, but the use table is really where it's called out. So when we do our zoning update, whether it's there or before that, we can flesh that out more.
Thank you. And that is not necessarily directly related to this discussion, because I support the initiatives that have been taken here, whether it's a conditional use permit or more specifically, I think probably inappropriately, the ban as discussed. So, but having said that, for the other uses, it's important to note that we're not without a definition.
Okay, Barbara.
I'm reading from this data we got from the city manager dated April 10th. During the April 7th city council meeting informal session, staff was asked to clarify the definition of light versus heavy industrial districts. The zoning ordinance does not provide a definition of light or heavy industrial districts. However, section 1000 of the zoning ordinance provides the purpose and intent of the light and heavy industrial districts, and it goes on. And what I'm saying is that we need to go forward and correct this fact that we don't clarify the difference between light and heavy. I mean, that's what you said here. And this whole thing of leading it to intent, I think, is what's causing the confusion with the public. When used in the context of the City of Virginia Beach zoning ordinance, the terms heavy industrial and light industrial refer to the title of two zoning districts, I-1 light industrial and I-2 zoning districts below. But then it goes on to talk about the intent of what it is. And so I think there's a lot of confusion about just what each category is, and it's kind of left up to somebody's not being sure. But I can tell you there's a lot of concern among our people about what we have gotten out of something that's zoned light industrial that is creating a terrific traffic problem on Princess Anne Road with enormous trucks that have to come out of the light industrial use and so forth. So I really think when we are going to talk more about industrial uses and allowing them into areas that have not previously been allowed industrial uses, we need to know what we're doing. And when we call something light industrial and we tell them it's going to be something like this, which is research, and it turns out to be heavy manufacturing, the public doesn't believe us. And I think our public is about ready to say, it doesn't really matter what you say. And so I was reading from this piece right here, and I'll be glad to let you have it, because this was the answer that we got on April 10th.
Sorry, Mayor, if I could respond. I also received that memo and read it, and I think probably both of our points stand, because it clearly states that there are two industrial zoning categories, and they are sometimes referred to as light and heavy industrial, and there are definitions of both. So thank you.
Not.
Yeah, Mrs. Henley, if I can give you a clarification. The reason the biomedical did not fly was because it was dictated by the market. And once again, we had to pivot. It was well-intended. I was 100% in favor of it, but the market said this is not feasible. Okay, Stacy and then Worth. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Amelia and Jen first.
A lot of things are going on. But I remember when you started talking about this whole cable, one of the things I whispered to Councilman Schuman is, but we're running out of land. So how this was going to fit in what we need. I remember being here on council for the cables at that time, and it did make a difference. And if we can continue down a certain path, instead of just jumping on board for whatever's brand new and shiny, I think it would do our city well. So really, I'm for banning what you mentioned about the data centers and the hyperscalers. Let's put together a resolution or whatever will work that we can get ahead of this train, because it's on its way. And as I listened already to the other two, already have sites that these two are in place. So when we do not have this data center, all that, I've received a lot of emails as well. And when you were mentioning, you mentioned the noise, you mentioned the humming, you mentioned the cooling, so it's there. And if we cannot be blindsided by what looks shiny. As a city, we have to maintain what is best for our city, not just an individual group that would like to do this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this is actually way easier than I was prepared for today, because yes, so thank you for recommending just straight up ban it so we don't have to worry about it. Thank you for the education as well, so to distinguish all these different types of data centers. So in terms of, I guess, preserving the first two and connecting to the light industrial versus heavy industrial, which would these two be? The subsea landing cable like co-location. I-1. I'm okay giving another look to the language. So even if it's there, if the public is confused, the public is confused. So if we can add more clarity, whether it's more examples or it's, descriptions, and I think that's fine to give more information so that it can answer some of these questions that may still be out there. And so I thank you for making that recommendation, and look forward to supporting it.
Okay, Stacy, and then Barbara.
This body is a nonpartisan body. We are all independent. We are not elected on either side of the aisle. And recently, this issue of data centers has become very political, nationwide, statewide. And I would just like our resolution to make clear that which I'm in favor of, our banning of data centers and hyperscalers is not based upon anything except our physical limitations to support those facilities. We don't have the land, we don't have the energy, we don't have the ability to house them. So it's nothing more than that. It's not taking one side of the equation or the political side, one side or the other. It's just based upon just the mere limitations that we have as a city.
Okay, Barbara.
Going back to your comment about this being the biomedical park, absolutely, we wanted it. And that's why we zoned this property light industrial to get a biomedical park. And that's what we marketed it, but it didn't work. And I remember so well the day that we came to city council with all the neighbors around who were now going to not get their biomedical park and were looking at something else. And we promised them it won't be medical, but we will have to look at some other possible uses for this property. But it's still zoned light industrial, which we had already done, and it had already been conveyed to the Development Authority for a biomedical park, so the city council had no input. And look at what they've got out there today. And I think when you look at what we promised and what we said with light industrial, and when we're told now that things like this would fit our ordinance because we're not defined enough, I think we definitely need to know when people say it's light industrial and I'm looking at heavy industrial, I think, what is the difference? And I think if we haven't been able to tell people the difference, that's what we need to get to. And in reading this, it's not just purpose and intent, and a broad thing like wholesaling. I mean, we're not a warehouse city. We're a city of sports tourism and agriculture and preservation and what we've always had. And if we're going to convert, we've got to be careful. And if we want to have more industrial, that's fine, but let's define it so people know what they're getting. And when they're told that they're going to get something like a research park, and they suddenly have this great manufacturing stuff out there, they don't trust us anymore. And I think it's the trust of the public that we really need to make sure we have.
Yeah, once again, with due respect, Ms. Henley, Amanda Jarrett was just up there when Michael asked her about our economic development initiative. Two of them were defense contractors, and we have a heck of a lot of manufacturers here. We're about getting ready to celebrate Steel's anniversary. And when you think about whether it be IMS here or Bosch or a whole bunch of stuff, manufacturing helps us pay our bills. Okay? Okay, let's go with Worth and then Hutch.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just weigh in for a minute, because I think a lot of you all know I've been in this space for 40 years now and all active around the region. Virginia Beach has a little over 14 million square feet under roof for all types of industrial real estate. I would say 90% of that, and I'll say the different parks that's contained in is I-1 and very few I-2. I-2 really covers outside storage. I-1 covers just about every industry that's in the following locations: Airport Industrial Park, which was developed by the Development Authority, London Bridge Industrial Park, Taylor Farms Commerce Park, and then the big one, it's really the capstone of our city, Oceana West Corporate Park, which started in the 1970s. That's Lynn Haven Parkway, International Parkway, and all the streets around it. That originally was intentioned and planned for an industrial park, and look how many Class A office buildings were in it. That's Lynn Haven Mall is down there. That's where Steel is based. Huge presence, ADS. We have defense contractors. We have a ton of manufacturing, a lot of distribution, and a lot of small mom and pop contractors, those who paint our houses, fix our cars, electricians. And I would say industrial is a big part of our city, as well as tourism, as well as agriculture, as well as Port of Virginia and manufacturing. So I think if you want an idea of what I-1 is, light industrial, drive down Lynn Haven Parkway, that's Oceana West Corporate Park, or go over to Airport Industrial Park next to the airport. Those are great businesses, a lot of jobs, a lot of paychecks, and a lot of taxes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mark, I missed your hand.
I was just going to say that I think what I've heard here today in terms of what a resolution would say and how you would incorporate a ban on data centers and hyperscalers, I think the way that you would do that is you would pass a resolution directing the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to you that would change the use tables in I-1 and I-2. And in I-1 and I-2, data centers and hyperscalers would not be a permitted use. And subsea cable landing sites and co-location facilities would be a conditional use. I think that's what your ban would look like. And I think that that's a pretty simple resolution to write.
Can we do that as an emergency tonight?
Well, it's just a referral resolution. If we typically like to have resolutions referring to the Planning Commission a specific ordinance.
Okay.
But if the council just wants to direct staff to draft and go directly to the Planning Commission with that simple change in the use tables, I think that's something that we could do without waiting for the resolution. If I have correctly captured what it is you're asking for, and if there's unanimity around the table as to that's what you want us to bring forward.
Would anybody object to that? Can you do it tonight?
Let's do it.
Well, there's nothing to do tonight because it still has to go to the Planning Commission. But what I'm taking from you is you want planning staff in my office to take to the Planning Commission a zoning ordinance amendment that will make the two red and green up there, the data centers and the hyperscalers, non-permitted uses, and the other two conditional uses. They would consider that ordinance amendment, the zoning ordinance amendment, and then it would come back to you for adoption pursuant to the normal planning process.
Okay. And can we ask them to expedite that post haste?
You can ask them, yes.
I'll make some phone calls.
Well, they.
We all can.
Yeah.
We all can.
Yeah, maybe just a simple resolution, not only no, but hell no. Yeah, that'll keep it simple. Okay. Hutch?
Just to kind of keep it light, because we've been kind of serious here for a little bit, I was just going to say to deputies, yeah, well, other than that part, thank you. Other than the deputy city manager, thank you so much for picking Hummingbird as a name that really kicked this ball off. It had nothing to do with data centers, but that's okay. It's nothing, getting everybody informed. Thank you to y'all, Director Wallace, for your presentation. It was very good. I was going to say to our planning team and to our planning commission, there's some of them here. We had no intentions of doing green and red. There's not one person here that was going to support that. The mayor said it perfectly. None of us are thinking that stuff on the right. We've had the ones on the left. We've had the Verizon switching centers all over the city. They're teeny little things, got big batteries in them. That's why the fire department, hazmat had to worry about them. I would also like to say thank you to the Planning Commission Chair, who is a retired fire captain, I might add, that he brought this up saying, hey, I know it was everybody's deal, but this is a little bit of a testament to how we can work quickly and get things accomplished in the right way so that we keep Virginia Beach the way we want. I know we're going to argue over a couple of names on things like that doesn't seem like it's going to die, but that we can work that way, and it's a credit to all of us. When we catch a bunch of heat from other things, there are times when this comes together very well, and I think this is a perfect example. The last thing I would like to say is if you say subsea cables, that's like a Cat 1 bike. Coalition of facilities is like a Cat 2 and Cat 3s. And then the motos are down on the right. I'm just saying.
Too soon, too soon.
You already have it there we go.
You have to get them escape.
No.
Saying right now too.
Hey, Hutch, you're not gonna bring it up again to our.
I'm good.
Okay.
Like I said,
All right, anybody else at this point? I think we have a direction.
Yes.
It was a good conversation.
Good conversation.
Okay, let's get it done. Okay. Council liaison reports, anybody? Work?
Thank you, Mayor. I am liaison to the Old Beach Design Review Committee. I'll wait for things to settle down.
Yep.
Sit down here. It looks like we didn't know.
Thanks. I'm liaison to the Old Beach Design Review Committee, and we've met for a couple of years and talked about what's happening in Old Beach. That's close to the resort, just west of Pacific Avenue, the numbered streets from 17th to about 30th Street. Historic neighborhood, so to speak. Goes way back, a lot of great houses there, and so it's gentrification. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but we have some density issues and some concerns from the community, and so we've addressed this in a lot of ways thanks to the help of both the planning staff and the city attorney's office. So the Resort Beach Civic League, as well as the Planning Commission and Old Beach Design Review Committee and the development community have talked and conferred, and we not going to change any building codes or design standards necessarily, but we want to allow some changes to, or some potential changes to the design setbacks so we can have better looking product at the end of the day. And it's hard for me to verbalize all of this. And so Kathy, I don't know if Ms. Warren, you want to speak to this or not, but we would ask for council's approval for a planning commission and staff to come forward with some recommendations or ordinance.
So, Mr. Mayor, Kathy and members of council, Kathy will give a brief synopsis, but at the end of this, if council is okay with it, then we would have planning staff work with the planning commission to make amendments to the policy and bring it forward to you all for approval. But Kathy, give a quick synopsis on what the
Yes,
ask
sir.
is.
So, council member, you're correct. We've been working with the Old Beach Civic League for probably a couple of years now on this. There's a concern about the form of the buildings, the tall and narrow, and they'd like to get to more of a wider structure to create more of what that community was intended to do and what the streets should look like in the houses. So we are happy to look at that. We have some ideas already, and we can do that in short order.
So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Remick is asking for staff to work with the planning commission on that. If council has no objection to that, I can have the planning
Are we
department.
okay with that, folks? Any objections? Let's move forward with that. Okay, Michael and then Amelia.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to make a few brief remarks. First is that on Friday, I think it was Friday evening, I had the
Privileged to attend the 4-H livestock show and sale at Creeds Ruritan that was supported by our city's agricultural department, along with Mrs. Henley, of course. And it was amazing. It was my first time at that livestock show and sale to see the young people and generations, supported by generations who had previously participated, selling the livestock that they raised, and for a lot of money, by the way, a lot of money, and continuing those agricultural traditions that exist in Virginia Beach and passing them through the generations. It was pure Americana, and it was really, really wonderful to see how connected and supportive and productive that community is, and how wonderful that 4-H organization that we have in Virginia Beach is, and supported by our ag team. So it was really wonderful. Mayor, I'm sure you're going to talk about the 531 Memorial, but I just, as the liaison.
What is the liaison when we go into it right now?
Yeah, I just as one of the liaisons to that initiative, and there from the time that we set up the committee, in addition to all the incredible aspects of what occurred on Sunday and this weekend, I particularly want to pay tribute to the members of the committee who brought their expertise and their broad array of knowledge and their experiences, but I think most importantly, their heart and their passion and their consideration for their neighbors in Virginia Beach and their colleagues to that effort. What we saw unveiled was the culmination of years of effort, and was a truly inclusive and considerate and thoughtful process that resulted in a memorial that pays tribute to those 12 individuals whose lives were taken in that horrific murder. All of the survivors, the colleagues, city colleagues and workforce, first responders, and all of those who are impacted in our community. And I encourage anyone and everyone in our city and beyond to visit the memorial at a time of their choosing, and experience what was created there. So in particular, I just want to thank our Cultural Affairs Department, Emily LeBeau and her team, Gills Architects, the contractor E.T. Gresham, and of course the volunteer committee who led that effort, and Dr. Larry Schooler, who served as a consultant on the project. And where other communities found disagreement, discord, and argument, division, we found unity and consideration. And that was a very special and very magical process to be a part of. So well done, and thanks to all the committee members. And then
Yeah, I was one of the.
one more thing to add, separate from the memorial, if I just could. The Jackalope Festival was also this weekend, and it's the 4th year. It's one of the city's best new festivals, and I don't want to diminish the importance of what you're about to say, but I just want to offer congratulations to the Jackalope team and to our CVB for executing another amazing event.
No, thank you, Michael. Very well said.
Well, we're both on the same line in that I'm also a member of the Memorial Committee. And when I talked to Keith Cox's brother, he looked at me and he said, number 7 is the number of completion. And we have actually gotten to completing what we set out, which to me was very important in the way he said it. Then I was able to take a photo of he and his mother. But just to hear, because a lot of people always say, when will this be done? But this was one person, where his brother, and he said, the number 7. We've done it in 7 years, and it's now complete, because that's the number of completion. I thought that was very touching. Like Michael mentioned, it was quite moving as people walked through and looked through, and very respectful in the manner, even all the speeches, your speech, and the others who spoke on behalf, including Dill, was well thought out, and the volunteers was really, really, really well done. So I applaud the city and all of us for looking at how important this was and giving it the complete respect. And the second thing, I went along, and Councilman Worth, we were over at, to see the beginning, meeting some of the people for Jackalope, and that was really nice. And to hear from Steele how excited they are about being a part of this. So We need to continue growing situations like that our city can feel proud about. And then the final thing I want to mention is that I'm on the committee for the council liaisons. I think the two of us are, for the arts and humanities. They want to announce that they're about to do the second round, beginning in June. So I'll share more about that for the Creative Neighborhood Grant, as well as the project grant, for anyone who will be interested in applying for that.
Yeah, before I get to Jennifer, I just want to say that I want to give kudos to Michael, Amelia, the team that came together. When you think about the awesome task that confronted them years ago, dealing with a variety of emotions, heartbreak, sorrow, things of that nature, they were able to come together and really do it right. Did it take a little longer? Yeah. But I'll tell you what, folks, you got it right. And, when I saw the memorial for the first time was, the other Sunday, and it's a wow factor. And it is touching. And when you see the love that was put into that, and I'll tell you what, it's an amazing completion. I just want to thank you all. Jennifer, and then Cash.
Thank you, Mayor. 4 things. One, this morning I gave welcoming remarks at the citywide Forever Young Tea Party. This is something I didn't realize that the Parks and Rec that we offered through our recreation center. So any adult age 55 and over, it's free through their Parks and Rec membership. Social events. So across the city, there was a number of folks from all over that came to Kempsville Rec Center for a tea party today. And so everyone was looking fantastic. And in my remarks, I said, thank you for showing us the way as you're aging, but you're looking great doing it. And they were having a good time. So that's just information for you all to share and for the public. So if you're 55 and older and know someone who is, that there are a number of social events and gatherings specific to seniors called the senior, what is it? Kirschman, Forever Young Senior Centers and the Forever Young program. Secondly, over the weekend, I just want to shout out Tree Kelty, who at Mount Cashmore hosted the inaugural Black Pride event. I know a number of council members and the mayor, Cash, you were there, and anyone else I missed you, I apologize. But just to shout her out for bringing that Pride event to Virginia Beach. Third, I want to give congratulations to Palace of Pickleball that opened in District 10 in the Timberlake Shopping Center. So I played pickleball for the first time at that grand opening, and I know now why it's the fastest growing sport in America. So I don't understand the rules, but I am very good. So I will be, so I'm looking forward to, so I'm already like, I'll be back. So thanks, I know we've expanded across the rec centers, but just want to shout out that business opening. Then I'll close out with the Boys and Girls Club. The mayor and I, we visited the Boys and Girls Club in Rosemont in my district this past week. And really the intention was to listen to teenagers and just give them a space to tell us about what they do and what they think. And the intention was to not only speak to Virginia Beach teens, but teens from around Hampton Roads, because what we know is that the oceanfront, it attracts everybody. And that as we're dealing with violence and behavior issues, but also, not all teens are doing these things, but these teens are more connected to TikTok and takeover culture than we are. So the idea was, can you tell us about what you're seeing and what you're hearing? And so I want to thank the mayor for joining and listening in on that. And I hope to have more of those kinds of meetings. And we have the 3-person rule, which is why not all council could attend, because then it would become a public meeting. And then the teens would have been quiet because there might have been too many people there. So I think it's something that hopefully it'll go across other cities as well, as we look towards a more regional and even statewide effort to try to create a space in our oceanfront and in our city that's welcoming to these young people as they're finding their way. One more thing, just as we're planning, a lot of what they said was, some of those third spaces where they can go aren't options for them anymore. So as malls are closing, or malls like Lynn Haven Mall now has a curfew as well. So these spaces where if you're just young and want to be around other young people, where can you go that's free? It doesn't cost a lot of money. And that's becoming the oceanfront. And so as we're programming out the oceanfront, as we're also making planning decisions, these are things to keep in mind as well. What are some of those spaces or facilities that teens, young adults, and older adults can access without a lot of money, and you can just spend time in a safe environment and just kind of hang out and people watch or spend time with your friends. They're missing a lot of those spaces. So that's something we ought to be thinking about as we're planning going forward. Thank you.
And, Jennifer, and thank you for organizing, or, partaking. What really struck me, we had youth from pretty much all over the south side of Hampton Roads, representing multiple cities. And when the question came up about the youth curfew, we didn't have anybody object to that. And the thing is that, because they want to be safe and they understood. Am I correct in
You're right,
saying
yeah.
that?
And I was surprised. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
And then when the pop-up event thing came, one of the young men said, he goes, hey, listen, if I'm having a birthday party with my family, I'm going to invite my family, my friends. But if it's open to anybody, somebody else can come and ruin the whole thing. Was that correct?
Yeah, we also had Sergeant Chris Washington from the police department to talk also about from the police perspective that when people, they're just a social media people. They put everything on the internet and there's no boundaries on the internet. So then when stuff grows and it takes off, and that's how takeovers happen, where what's meant to be fun and innocent goes to whatever corner of the internet and it gets attention and people want to be seen, and then they start Snapchatting if that's still around or whatever. And so, trying to, hey, you create spaces, but close it, make it more exclusive. Don't put addresses out there. Don't put, invites just on your social media platform. Send it directly to people and try to contain it. But so a lot of this revolves around social media. A lot of it's beyond our control, but trying to understand what worlds they're living in so we can address it more effectively.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Yeah. Yes.
So I'm thankful, this is council comments, but my wife and I, we received a letter from one of the seniors in our district from Atlantic Shores Christian High School.
Water.
Right?
Seahawks. I never get to say that.
Look,
Seahawks, that's right.
it touched our hearts so much that I have to read. It's short, but listen, let me just read this to you. It said, Dear Councilman Cal Jackson Green Jr., my name is, and it gives the name of the senior. I am a senior at Atlantic Shore Christian High School in Chesapeake, Virginia, but she lives in District 7 this year. I was able to take government class where we had a year-long assignment titled Praying for Those in Authority. Students would pick 4 government officials who we found interesting or were connected to research and write a prayer for. We would then present our findings to the class and pray for each official. Finally, we fill out a paper star, that's this, which each official's name and position, and staple it to our bulletin board. I live in Virginia Beach, District 7, and I wanted to pray for my representative who works very hard to serve all the people in my community. I am grateful for all the effort you put in into improving our lives, and I am continuing to pray for you to stand strong in your faith as you lead this city. As our country celebrates 250 years this year, I am reminded of what government officials such as yourself do for the people to allow the country to run smoothly. Thank you so much again for all that you do. Sincerely. And then it gives the name of the senior. It just touched my heart because there are powerful seniors that are within Virginia Beach who are very positive. So when it's bleak and we hear reports of, maybe seniors not living up to their standards, know that there are seniors who are, and youth who are striving for positive outcomes. So I just wanted to read this.
Oh, that was great. What district was that in?
Oh, thank you, District 7. I know, Mark, sorry. It's a letter.
Okay, just real quick. We got out the announcement of the mayor's task force on for a safer Virginia. We have a dynamite group of people. As a matter of fact, one is out in the audience today. And it was a very eclectic group that is a broad representation of everybody. We're going to have, I believe, 6 meetings between now and October. And then we're going to have some public forums. Delcino Miles will be the moderator. It's going to be open and transparent, and it's going to be productive. But thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, how about agenda review?
How about the agenda review? We only have 4 items. Does anybody have any issues with it, or can they all go on consent?
All on consent?
All on consent. We also have a very extensive open mic night so far.
A lot of it was on data
I
science.
know, they may change their mind now.
We'll see what
There's 23 speakers.
Maybe we can make an announcement at the beginning.
23 speakers.
Yeah. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exceptions from open meetings allowed by section 2.2, 3711A, Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of publicly held property where discussion open city would affect adversely the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A3, District 6, District 2, personnel matters, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A1, council appointment, boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees, and performance of council employees. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Councilmember Berlucci?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley? Councilmember Hutchison?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland? Councilmember Ross Manley?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
11-0.
Okay, we're reset, and folks, we got to. Welcome all. Good evening. We're going to gavel this to get going. And today we are pleased to have Reverend Beth Anderson, pastor, Courthouse Community United Methodist, to give us the invocation. If you're willing and able, please stand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Let us pray. Almighty and awesome God, pour your Holy Spirit upon all of us gathered here this evening to work for the good of our city. I pray for our city leaders, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff, and our city council. We pray that tonight that you will lead us and guide us and strengthen every single one of them with wisdom, compassion, and justice. Give them clarity and discernment as they lead and do this work on behalf of all the citizens of Virginia Beach. We pray for our city, especially as we remember the victims, families, heroes, and all who continue to suffer and mourn the losses from May 31, 2019. We thank you for all who work to create a memorial that honors their legacy and helps us to remember them with love and hope for a future without violence. We pray for our mayor's new task force for a safer Virginia Beach. Bless these members and work that they do to create a safer Virginia Beach for all who live and visit our wonderful city. We pray tonight that as our city council learns and makes decisions, they will be given thoughtfulness to make decisions and consider the people, the environment, and the future for Virginia Beach. We pray that every single person here is valued and acknowledged with kindness and respect. Every person here is made in the image of God, and we will never see or meet a person, Lord, whom you do not love. You have given us a gift of leadership and service, and that is a privilege and a responsibility. With this gift, may we love and care for all people who fill your city. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Anderson. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Okay, at this point, maybe I ask for a moment of silence to honor those who have paid the ultimate price, protecting our city and our nation. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor, all present.
Okay, and a motion for the certification of the closed session.
So moved.
Second.
And that's of May 19th, 2026. Okay,
The certification is for the earlier closed session, Mayor.
okay, I'm sorry, the closed session first, okay, and
Yes.
then we'll do the minutes.
The vote is open.
Okay, my apologies.
That's
Thank you, Madam
okay.
Clerk.
By a vote of 11-0, you certify the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
And now I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the informal and formal session of May 19th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
The vote is open.
Thank you.
By a vote of 10-0 with Vice Mayor Wilson abstaining, you have approved the minutes as submitted.
Okay, thank you all very much. Before we get into the mayor's presentations, I just want to make an announcement. As we all know, the subject of data centers has been a very hot issue going forward. And just to let you know that the council this afternoon unanimously agreed that we will not entertain any data centers in the city of Virginia Beach. And we will be forward. We're going to ask the Planning Commission to expedite this, and we're going to vote this down at the earliest possible convenience. But I just wanted to let you know right up front, okay? Okay, at this point, first resolution, Steele's 100th birthday. Do we have Hugh Hirsch here, Lorraine Amsbury Holder, and Scott Tilley, perchance? Please come forward. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so proud to read this resolution that was signed by every city council member. And whereas in 1926, Andres Steele established an engineering firm and dealer for woodworking machines in Stuttgart, Germany, and manufactured his first steel chainsaw. And whereas the company expanded in 1930, employing 30 people and setting up their first manufacturing facility in Cannstatt, near Stuttgart. And whereas Steele is responsible for major innovations in chainsaw development and is credited for the anti-vibration system, electronic ignition system, and saw chain with self-lubricating effect. And whereas in 1971, Steele achieved market position of the world's top-selling chainsaw brand. Whereas after decades of demand and growth, in 1973, Steele expanded their footprint for the first time outside of Germany with a sales and production facility in Brazil. A year later, the company selected a production site in Virginia Beach to establish their U.S. presence. Whereas in 1974, Steele began construction in Virginia Beach location, which has since grown to be one of the largest manufacturing facilities in the Commonwealth of Virginia with nearly 2,700 employees. Whereas Steele has production facilities in 8 different countries, and Steele products are sold through 44 Steele-owned companies, approximately 120 importers, and more than 55,000 independent Steele dealers across 160 countries. Whereas the year 2026 marks the 100th anniversary of Steele. We celebrate their legacy and pioneering innovation and manufacturing excellence that has made them a top-selling brand of handheld outdoor power equipment worldwide. Now, Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Virginia Beach Council celebrates the 100th anniversary of steel and recognizes their contribution to the global and Virginia Beach manufacturing community. Given by the City Council of Virginia Beach on the second day of June 2026, we present this resolution signed by each and every member of City Council.
We'll just stand back behind it, right? We'll stand behind it.
Can we stand behind John?
No, we'll just stand up here. Yeah. What do you want us?
You guys were just kind of coming together.
Yeah. Come on over, man.
Okay. Thanks for the warning. That would not be. We just got a brand new restroom. Thank you very much. Yeah, that would not be good. Just got here.
Oh, my goodness. Where was this when we did the budget?
Excellent. And then if we could sneak in.
Who says the mayor can't cut it? How do I look? Like microphone?
Right. Thank you.
Turn that off. Thank you. Okay. We should get past it and then pull it out.
Okay. It's great to have folks like that helping make Virginia Beach such a great place to live, work, play, and have their businesses. Okay, moving on. Michael Bellucci, I believe you have the resolution for something.
I do, Mayor, thank you. And before I begin reading the proclamation, I'd like to invite everyone who's here for the Pride Month proclamation to come down to the podium, please. And while they're coming down, Mayor, if I could, before I read the proclamation, I'd just like to say a couple of things. The first is to thank you, Mayor, for issuing this proclamation, as you have every year since you've been mayor. You're the first mayor to issue the proclamation officially declaring Pride Month in the city of Virginia Beach. And I think that you deserve a lot of credit for recognizing each and every member of our community and the value that each and every person brings to our community. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and for your dedication to serving all of your constituents. And thank you for that. And I think you should be recognized for your leadership in that effort.
Oh, thank you.
I also just want to say just a few words. Thank you, Mayor. Let's give them. I'd also just like to say a few words about Pride Month and that it's especially meaningful to me personally and professionally. As a member of the LGBT community myself, and having spent many years involved in this work, I've seen firsthand the difference that visibility, acceptance, and belonging make in a person's life. And as I'm looking out and I'm seeing a broad range of people who are involved in this work, I've seen firsthand the impact that the work you do has on the lives of members of our community, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be part of a city, Virginia Beach, that continues to strive to be a city where every single person is welcome, valued, safe, and able to contribute their talents and their perspectives and have the opportunity to fulfill their highest potential. And so it's my honor to present this Pride Month proclamation. And of course, we're joined by representatives from a variety of organizations, some of which you'll hear from in just a few moments. And again, I want to thank you for your work. And I'd also like to just end my personal remarks by sharing something that I saw recently that is simple, but is poignant. And I want to invite all of us to contemplate on these words just briefly, because it impacted me when I read it. It's 2026, we've come a long way, but we still know we have some a ways to go. But what I saw that was simple but impactful read, love is a terrible thing to hate. So with that, I would like to read this proclamation. It's my great honor to do so. Whereas the City of Virginia Beach values the many contributions of its lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and other community members whose leadership, service, volunteerism, creativity, and civic engagement continue to strengthen our city and enrich the lives of residents and visitors alike. And whereas the LGBTQ community members and their allies foster connection, compassion, and support throughout Virginia Beach by building partnerships, uplifting youth and families, and promoting opportunities that enhance the physical, mental, social, and cultural well-being of our community. And whereas June is recognized nationwide as Pride Month, commemorating the events surrounding the Stonewall protest of June 28, 1969 in New York City, which marked a significant moment in the ongoing pursuit of dignity, visibility, and equal opportunity for LGBTQ individuals. And whereas Pride Month celebrations provide an opportunity to recognize the diversity of our community, encourage understanding and respect, and celebrate the spirit of inclusion that makes Virginia Beach a welcoming place for all. And whereas June 2026 marks 38 years of summertime celebrations hosted by many organizations, including Hampton Roads Pride, whose Pride Fest events continue to bring together residents and visitors in celebration of unity, diversity, and community pride throughout the Hampton Roads region. And whereas the City of Virginia Beach remains committed to fostering a community where all individuals are treated with dignity and respect. And in support of that commitment, LGBTQ liaisons have been identified within public safety departments and the city manager's office to help provide resources, support, and communication for residents and employees. The liaisons review the city's policies and services through an LGBTQ lens and provide a friendly ear to constituents or staff wishing to bring LGBTQ-related issues to the attention of city government, which has led to the City of Virginia Beach receiving a perfect score on the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index. And whereas the City of Virginia Beach encourages all people, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, to be safe, supported, empowered, and valued within our community. Now, therefore, I, Michael Berlucci, along with our mayor, Robert M. Bobby Dyer, mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, do hereby proclaim June 2026 as Pride Month in the City of Virginia Beach and encourage all residents to celebrate the diversity of our community and continue working together to promote inclusion, kindness, and mutual respect throughout our city. So happy Pride Month and congratulations. And thank you. And what we're going to do is come down, and we're going to take a picture. We're going to come down, we're going to take a picture, all all together, and then invite any one of those who would like to just offer very brief remarks and reflections to do so, and just wait till we come back, if that's okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. So I don't stick out like this. Because I gotta watch my steps.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
Oh, good, thank you. Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're missing a person, but I'll go ahead and get started, Mayor, if you're good with that. Mayor, City Council, City Manager, all with the City of Virginia Beach. My name is Jamar Davis, President of Hampton Roads Pride. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I must echo Michael Bellucci in recognizing the tremendous progress that the City of Virginia Beach has made. As we're gathering for Pride Month, this proclamation, I reflect on more than about 7 months of planning with your Resort Management Committee, a little bit more probably. But it's been a great experience. Beach events, the Restaurant Association, different hotels, Neptune's Park, everyone that kind of works with CVB and the different committees. It has been great to work with them. And I would say that my team feels the same way about that. Councilmember Michael Bellucci, thank you for your support over the years, a mentor to not only myself, but to those in our community. Pride at the Beach will be at Neptune's Park, June 28th. So we're super excited. We're expecting thousands to come together in our city to celebrate inclusion and all of the efforts that we're putting into the region. I want to thank you all for the progress we continue to make and all the efforts in truly reflecting that diversity in our city. Thank you, and I hope to see you all during Pride Month.
Will do.
Yeah.
Good evening and happy Pride. My name is Thea Ross, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the founder and executive director of the Kalos Coalition. We're a local trans empowerment nonprofit based right here in Virginia Beach. But what is Kalos? Pronounced Kalos is the non-gendered ancient Greek word for beauty. Equally applied to Adonis or Athena, Kalos isn't about perfection or appearance. It's about the light that shines when someone lives aligned with their purpose. That light, that sense of presence, wholeness, and joy, aligned toward good works and excellence, that's what builds strong communities. That's what beauty is. That's what Kalos is. Now, I know when people hear the phrase trans empowerment, their minds jump to headlines of politics, but I'm here to talk about people. Neighbors, youth, families who deserve what we all do: connection, dignity, and hope. Many folks are surprised to learn that there are an estimated 20,000 to 25,000 transgender and gender expansive people across the 7 cities, including estimated over 4,500 transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse folks living right here in Virginia Beach. It doesn't surprise me though, because be it lawyers, doctors, Navy captains, firefighters, grocery baggers, caregivers, musicians, and on, we are your neighbors. Hampton Roads has always been a rich and diverse area of the world, and there are sadly some darkened hearts that would view not just trans folk, but the entire LGBTQIA+ community as some sort of threat. To each person confused or concerned, I ask you to reject such nonsense and instead orient together towards pressing issues and shared threats, such as our livelihood and unity when we chase away tourism, waging culture wars against young people or queer folks. We have much work to do to ensure the safety, privacy, and respect of all workers and families, regardless of who they love or how they identify. I am so proud of the progress Virginia Beach has made, and I look forward to the progress we will all make together in the coming years. Trans rights are human rights, and human rights include the right to have a family and to thrive in our community. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work.
Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening. Lieutenant Van Note, Sergeant Perry Chrisman from the Virginia Beach Police Department. We are your two LGBT liaisons. I've been doing it for 12 years. Sergeant Chrisman's been with me for three years. So I have to thank her for a lot of work that she's done over the 3 years that she has become an ally. I specifically recruited her because she was an ally, and I wanted everyone, not only within the Virginia Beach Police Department, but our community to know that we do support them, we are here for them, and really working on building that bridge and that gap between the police department, law enforcement, and the LGBT community, because we know that history shows that there's not always been a great relationship there. So we have put in a lot of work between Captain Meister, who has stepped down because of being promoted to captain, and passed the torch to me, and now to Sergeant Perry. We have really put in a lot of work to build that relationship with not only internally, our police department, the certified officers, as well as our civilian staff, and then working with the community, adult level, and our youth. It's not a secret that I've done a lot of work with Stand Up for Kids. I think Becca's going to talk a little bit about that, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but I take a lot of pride in 5 years ago realizing that with Mark Stevens, Nicole Pixler, Becca, that we had nothing for our youth in the LGBT community, and a lot of them end up homeless, committing suicide, or addicted to narcotics and drugs because they come out and their parents kick them out. That's a problem, folks. They need to feel the love. They need to know that we support them. They need to know that we're there for them and that we have resources out there for them. So we've taken the last 5 years and really dove into our kids. We started out with like 5 kids, ended up with about 50, 55, and we fluctuate in between the 5 and that 55, 60-ish number to this day. So those folks care. They appreciate your support. It's nice to say that the city of Virginia Beach supports them. So city council, mayor, city manager, police chief Paul Newdigate, we really appreciate the support for us to be able to do the work that we do, not only within the police department, but also within the community. So thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
And thanks to both of you for making Virginia Beach a true city of heroes for what you do every day. Thank you and God bless.
My name is Becca Diggs, and I'm here representing Stand Up for Kids. To echo the words of Lieutenant Van Note, Stand Up for Kids helps youth and young adults who are experiencing homelessness. And over 5 years ago, Mark Stevens, Nicole Pixler, and Lieutenant Van Note herself came together, and they realized there are so many of these youth that they're serving in this homeless population that have that crossover into the LGBTQ+ community. And they didn't have that resource of support. They didn't come from families where they were loved and cherished and honored the way so many youth are and should be. And they looked around and they said, where are these young people to turn when they have no one else who's looking at them and wanting to welcome and accept them? So they created the U meetings that happen every other Wednesday evening at the Oceanfront Library and will be happening tomorrow. If anyone ever wants to stop by and visit and give support to our youth, we welcome that. Those meetings are specifically for middle school and high school youth who identify with the LGBTQ+ community or are allies of the LGBTQ+ community. I have had the extreme honor and privilege of being a part of helping co-facilitate these meetings for the last 4 years, and it has been a life-changing experience. to have youth who came from their middle school years coming in with anxiety and insecurities, not feeling like they had anyone who saw them for who they were and loved them for who they were, to now those youth being in high school and in turn acting as a support system for the younger students who now come and are a part of the group. It has been an absolute joy to be a part of creating this community for them and with them, and seeing them create that same community in turn for each other. So to have people in positions of authority and power willing to stand up and say, we see you, we accept you, and we love you exactly the way you are, means so much, not just to the people in this room, but to the youth who are experiencing that lack of support and love and guidance on a daily basis. So thank you so much for your part in this, because it means more to us and to them than you can ever know.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all for coming, and thanks once again for being such a vital part of Virginia Beach. And you too make VB strong. Thank you. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers, sir.
Okay, let's do the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And under ordinances, there's 4 items. One is the ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement for up to 5 years with the Virginia Beach Bar Association for use of approximately 215 square feet at the Judicial Center, 2425 Nemo Parkway, Building 10, Ray office space. Number 2 is the ordinance to donate 48 parking meters to the Vibe Creative District to reuse in an art project. Number 3 is the ordinance to accept and appropriate $725,220 from the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation to the FY 2025-26 Capital Improvement Program to Project 100-701 Princess Anne Bond Water Transmission Main, and authorize a local match of $80,580 within Capital Project 100-701. And number 4, last but not least, is the ordinance to accept and appropriate $43,400 from the Virginia State Police for the FY 2025-26 Police Department operating budget, rate travel and training to address human trafficking in Hampton Roads. Move for approval.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Thank you. By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wilson.
Okay, do we have any appointments tonight?
Not tonight.
Okay, not tonight. Any old business? Any new business? Okay, we're going to adjourn and we're going to go into open mic. Thank you.